At 6 o'clock, and I declare this ordinary council meeting open. I welcome all those people here in person and all those at home watching on the live stream. I'd like to start by saying Kaya Wanji Mali Budja. Hello, welcome to Swan Country, and the City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of the region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we pay and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and their descendants. Item 2, the disclaimer. The City of Swan disclaims any liability for any loss arising from any person or body relying on any statement, discussion, recommendation or decision made during this meeting. Where an application for an approval, a licence or the like is considered or determined during this meeting, the City warns that neither the applicant nor any other person or body should rely upon that discussion or determination until written notice of either an approval and the conditions which relate to it or the refusal of the application has been issued by the City. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. The recording will also be archived and made available on the City's website after the meeting. If you choose to participate in the meeting during public question time and public statement time, it is assumed your consent is given for the audio to be recorded. Please keep your comments respectful to the Council and other members of the community. Visual images of the public will not be captured. Conditions of entry: no electronic, visual or audio recording or transmitting device or instrument is permitted to be used. A person who breaches this provision of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 will be required to immediately leave the premises. Item 3, attendance and apologies. Note all councils are present in the chamber other than Councillor Prodovnik, who's an electronic participant tonight, and I can see you. Thanks, Rochelle. Staff also participating by electronic means are Mr Bishop, Miss Kim Lay and Miss Muriel Pickering. Is there any apologies, councillors? Staff? No? Item 4, declarations of financial proximity or interests affecting impartiality. Mr CEO, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a further declaration of interest from Councillor Knight. It's in relation to item 4.1, which is the State Administrative Tribunal reconsideration of refusal of single house outside of building envelope, lot 2160, number 139 Litchfield Promenade in Janebrook, and that is DA 69 of 2021. It's an interest of impartiality, and the reason is a former friend of Sam Calabrese's, who is the father.
No others, councillors? Thank you. Item 5, public question time. And just to advise that question and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Administration Regulations of 1996. Questions and answers marked with an asterisk have been amended either for the purpose of summarising, removing preambles or statements, or for editing purposes. Section 5.1, answers of questions which was taken on notice, there are nil. Section 5.2, questions relating to reports contained in the agenda, and 5.21, questions of which due notice has been given. There were 2 questions from Dr Marilena Stempfel, and they have been answered. Have you seen those answers, Dr Stempfel? Is she in the building? Outside, thank you. Ms Caroline Hughes asked 2 questions and they have both been answered in the run sheet. Thank you, councillors. Then section 5.2.2, questions without due notice, is a question from Mr Simon Ashby. 2 questions and they have been answered. The following have registered to ask questions in relation to items on the agenda. Ms Leah Bowden in relation to item 5.1, the Lloyd Street Bridge concept design. Mr Brett Jones in relation to item 4.4, State Administration reconsideration. Ms Bowden, are you in the chamber? If you can come forward and ask your questions, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff. Through you, Mr Mayor, my question in 3 parts, quite short, is to Mr Coton, if I may.
Could I just ask you to stand a little bit closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, my question in 3 parts, which are very short, is to Mr Coton, if I may, please.
Thank you.
Given the importance of the vote this evening, and for councillors being fully and properly informed before voting proceeds, Mr Coton, have you or your staff obtained a copy of the traffic report that Helena River Alliance, through Dr Stimple, requested on a number of occasions, including as recently as at the last agenda forum, to be obtained by council? And if so, has the report been provided to all councillors within reasonable time for them to be able to consider it before tonight's meeting?
Are you relating to the Jacobs traffic report,
Yes.
Mr Coton?
Yeah, no, we haven't received that.
I'm sorry?
Through the Mayor, no, the City hasn't received a copy of that.
Okay, in that case, having still not obtained the report, are you able to tell us why not, and what actions you or your staff have taken to make the request, to obtain the report, and the dates and form of those requests?
I'll have to take that on notice in relation to the dates and etc.
And whether it's telephone, email or letter, like a formal request?
Thank you. I think that was a decision of council to formally request in writing,
Yes.
but we have not received a reply
Right,
from the
okay.
appropriate department. Thank you. You have
All
a
right.
third question?
Well, yes. Given the City has stated the necessity of a bridge over the Helena River to address claimed traffic concerns, is it not important and integral to proper process that councils are provided with that report within reasonable time before casting their vote tonight or at any other time?
Thank you, Mr Coton.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there are other traffic reports that have been undertaken that demonstrate the need for the bridge that have been provided to Council.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next speaker of asking questions is Mr Brett Jones. In regards to item 4.4, State Administrative Tribunal reconsideration of a single house outside the building envelope in Litchfield Promenade, Jane Brook. Thank you, Mr Jones.
Thanks, Council. I think this classifies as 2 questions. So, as you're aware, last week, and you remember, there's a lot of discussion about the covenants on my property, as well as the developer's approval. And the neighbour said that it had been refused by the developer, even though it had already been approved. So I thought that was ridiculous, but there's some weird things that happened on this application, so I decided to phone the developer and check what was going on. So this has all happened in the last few days. Essentially, after some very serious conversations and their lawyers reviewing all the information that we've sent them, they came back and apologised to us and offered to set the record straight. So this afternoon I sent you guys all an email saying that there's been an error by the developer, and that they acknowledge that they made a mistake and that the original approval is still legal and is still applicable. And then the developer actually replied to that email saying, confirming that. So I just want to ask the council to acknowledge that they've received those emails, read those emails, and understand what that email means. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask the second question, but I just read the motions. And I'd just like to ask...
if you could form it in the type of a question, it sounds like
Yep.
you're making a public statement. Thank you, Mr Jones.
I would just like to ask that it's been... the council resolved to refuse it for amenity reasons. So I'd just like to ask the council what objective assessment have they made on amenity, and what sort of policies, standards they've used to make that assessment. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. I can defer to Mr Van Leeuwen or Mr Russell, and if you can't answer tonight, you can take it on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, very succinctly, when we're considering the relocation outside of the building envelope, we're looking at the landform, we're looking at aspects in relation to vegetation clearing, we're looking at aspects in relation to drainage and surface stability, we're looking at aspects of proximity to surrounding properties and visual impacts on surrounding properties. That's what we're assessing it objectively against the policy.
Thank you, Mr Russell. Is that Mr Troy?
Mr Mayor, thank you.
Well, Mr Troy, I haven't got you listed, and I'll take direction of council whether they wish me to allow you to ask a question. If I can have an indication. Thank you, councillors. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. I refer to Part B, item 5.1, Part C, item 1.1. And I ask the question, 1, have councillors received a copy of my statement that I understand has not been listed for presentation at tonight's meeting? Question 2, did the presiding officer consider the statement was not relevant to tonight's proceedings? And 3, will my statement, as held by all councillors, be considered as input to the items Part B, item 5.1, Part C, 1.1, item 1.1?
Thank you, Mr Troy. Yes, I received your statement. Point 2, did I consider it to be included? By the time you had sent your email through, the number of public questions and people asking to make public statements had already been full. We only have a limited time for that, and we had a lot of people get in before you. So it was considered, but it didn't make the cut-off. And yes, I believe all councils give it due consideration. Thank you, Mr Troy. Item 5.3, other questions. 5.3.1, questions of which due notice has been given. There were 4 questions from Ms Diane Avino. Is Ms Avino in the gallery? No, the answers are there on the run sheet. Mr Bob Baku asked 5 questions and they've all been answered. Is Ms Baku in the gallery? No. And 5.3.2, questions without notice, and Ms Ebony McKay asked 2 questions and they've both been taken on notice by the CEO and will be formally responded to. Is Ms McKay in the gallery? No. I've received no registrations for questions prior to the meeting. Is there anyone else in the public gallery wishing to ask a question in relation to general matters relating to the City of Swan that are not on the agenda? If the lady could come up first, state your name and ask your question, please.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Jacqueline Jones. I'm from Henley Brook. I just want to ask a question about the public parks and ovals in Ellenbrook, Henley Brook, Aveley over the summer, and I know it's been a very long, hot summer. These ovals that the kids play on, the parks, none of them were watered. Everything has died. Now, the community have sent several emails to different councillors, got different answers, lots of different answers. So can we please have the official answer? And can we ask what's the policy from now on for the summer for watering the ovals and parks?
Thank you. Mr Coaten, if you want to take it on notice, but you might be able to give some preliminary information if you can.
There were quite a range of problems with the irrigation system in those areas. A lot of the parks were still watered. There were a number where there were problems, and they're being addressed at the moment. If there are any specific ones that are of concern, you're welcome to contact me directly.
Thank you.
If you could identify the parks that you're specifically referring to, thanks, Mrs Giles, and then the executive manager will get back to you with a detailed response.
Okay.
Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
I saw a gentleman here. If you could come up, state your name and ask your question, please.
Simon Ashby, probably not the correct thing, but I was wondering why I was not given the opportunity to accept the answer to the question. And I have one thing, was the piles concerning Lot 5.1, was that based on the concept design being voted on tonight or an earlier version?
Is this about making a public statement, Mr Ashby, or asking questions?
This is in response to your answer, which I don't really accept. I want clarification.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit confused as to... Have you asked me a question or... questions?
Question 2, questions without notice. You gave the first questioner, who was out of the room, the opportunity to respond. You did not give me the opportunity to respond.
Sorry, it was just a pure oversight by myself.
Okay, that's all right, yes.
I apologise.
Yes.
So, you've asked 2 questions, I believe.
Yes, and I would like to know whether the response is in terms of the current concept design, which is being voted on tonight, or other versions.
Mr Coton, thank you.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. It would have been an earlier version of the design. The design for that area, for those piles, has progressed since then and will continue to progress as well.
Thank you.
And I do apologise if I skipped over you, Mr Ashby. It was a human error. As I said, I've received no further questions. We've had questions. Are there any more from the public gallery? The lady in the far right of the chamber, yes. If you come forward, state your name and ask a question. Thank you.
Smadal Turner. And the question is relating to the priority list that the council is working according. So if you're familiar, it's a document that was approved by the council in 2016. Therefore, probably it was written in 2015. That document lists the orange routes in number 3, and it lists fresh water for Ellenbrook as number 8. So my question is, first of all, is the council aware that most businesses that have a 5- and 10-year plan update those plans every year? Second question, do you think that's a reasonable thing to do? And my third question is, as we are coming now to 7 years from when the plan was done, when do you think the next plan will be updated?
Are you talking about the City of Swan's priority list booklet?
Yeah.
We produce a booklet every year.
Yes.
So if you've only seen the last version...
I have taken the one out of the website, and every year there seems to be an addition to it.
Yes,
So-
because some projects come off that because they're funded and completed. So I dare say in 2016, the number 1 priority would have been the Lloyd Street Bridge, again in 17, and we received funding from memory in 2018, so that project is now off the list. So they juggle around depending on, and from memory I'd say in 2016 the second project may have been the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre, but I'm only going from memory from 6 years ago. So there is a current list of 2021, and I'm happy to provide you a copy of that.
I have a copy, I'll double check. Can you tell me where the orange route is on that list, just from the top of your head, as you seem to be quite well familiar?
If I said it was number 3 or 4, I could be wrong, but I'll get you a copy of that priority list, and then we'll both know for certain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And there's another person with their hand up. If you come forward, please state your name and ask your question.
Good evening, Lynn Deering. I have a question that relates to Mr Ashby's question around the traditional custodians being given support for this aspect of the concept design. And Mr Coton has just explained that at the time, in the answer that was supplied, it says that Main Roads have advised that the requirement of the piling was presented to the traditional landowners as part of Section 18 surveys, and there's no significant discussion or concerns raised at the time. Mr Coton has just mentioned the fact that at the time the traditional owners were not looking at the design, a much earlier design, in which there was supposedly discussion, and it's been implied here that the traditional owners then agreed to the concept design in both the response that was given back to Mr Ashby's question and also reiterated tonight in Jim Coton that the version you have that you're looking at tonight has not been confirmed by traditional owners. So this raises concern for me, given that the state government has basically had to review and revise Section 18 of the Heritage Act because it has been misused in the past, and it is well known to have been misused in the past. So if we are using a Section 18 that has been reviewed...
Could you ask your question? Thanks, Ms Deering.
So, Council, can you, in all honesty, feel confident in regard to how the Section 18 has been used in regard to the concept design, given the fact that the state government sought to actually review and change Section 18 because it has been misused on many occasions? Do you feel confident about the use of Section 18 to validate signing off on the concept plan tonight? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that on notice. Okay. Any other questions from the public gallery? Then we'll move on to item 6, public statement time. And each public statement will be limited to 2 minutes with no extensions, and a maximum of 15 minutes to set aside, but I've allowed 8 public statements, so we'll have 16 minutes. And the first person to speak is Mr. Dr. John Considine in relation to item 5.1. Thank you, John. You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, Lucas, councillors, staff.
Could I just ask you to go?
Yes.
Thank you.
But let's be very clear. This is the Lloyd Street Bridge is the City of Swan Bridge. You requested it. The funds... Shall I take this off? Possibly. The funds were allocated to you and the state at your request.
Sorry, Mr. Considine, I've got an objection to you removing your mask, so
Right.
thank you.
It belongs to you. You prepared no business case, had no detailed budget, no plans, no design, no timelines, no impact assessment, no updated traffic report, no consultations with the traditional owners or otherwise. You got the funds and you walked away from it. Well, what Main Roads is planning to do is not acceptable. Their consultations with you and the non-Aboriginal community was dismissive. That with the traditional owners was unconscionable. MRWA may have ticked all the legal boxes, but this bridge has been questioned by DBCA, Swan River Trust, the community and the traditional owners. You know the consultation with the traditional owners has not reflected their wishes. Not one of their requests was included. You know they did not endorse or accept any design. These elders are gutsy. They want you to hear them. They want you to take action. They are your citizens and they are asking for you to represent them.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
This is your chance to ensure that this bridge is appropriate, fit for purpose, sustainable and fair. Shifting the responsibility for this bridge onto others will not protect the City of Swan from any fallout. Councillors, be part of the solution. You have the power. You can do it. But do you have the courage? Do you?
Thank you. The next public statement will be made by Senator Dorinda Cox. Thank you, Senator. You'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm here this evening to read an extract from a personal statement written by 3 of the 7 Whadjuk people involved in the consultation that led to the Bridges Section 18 approval. They've asked for my help in giving them voice and in their words and the truth about this bridge. We've learned from the Helena River Alliance what the new bridge will look like. We were very upset because it does not include any of the things we asked for. The bridge will still be built in the same place and will still infill most of the floodplain. The billabong will be buried by a pipe and there will be pylons in the river. It is not true to say that we approved this bridge. We were told that the bridge that had to be built and we did not agree on this. We do not understand how it got approval. We thought it would be a long suspended connected to the roads that were already built with little infill in the floodplain. We have now learned that the floodplain will be buried with at least 100,000 metres cubed of infill. We have not been told about that. We were not told about the pylons that were inside the embankments. To us, the river includes everything from one bank to the other. The floodplain is the same as the river. From what we've learned, the bridge will have 150 plus pylons inside those embankments. This is the opposite of what we asked Main Roads for. The pylons have just been hidden from our view. It was unfair to ask us to review so much information in just a few days.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
It was overwhelming, stressful to make those decisions on site, and the information given was difficult to understand and was very confusing. We felt pressured to make a final decision without being able to go away and think about it. We don't understand why we weren't allowed to meet in the same room and talk properly about the design. Long days on site made this consultation decision-making even more difficult. Throughout this process, we have felt at loggerheads with Main Roads, no matter what we didn't want, because we didn't want the bridge being built anyway. We were forced to choosing a bridge design that we did not want in the first place. We felt we had no choice but to agree, and it sounded like the best option to protect the river.
Thank you. That's your
Thank you.
Thank you. The next public statements from Mr David Rees regarding parking plan and issues for Stirling Street, Guildford. Thank you, Mr Rees. You'll have 2 minutes.
I'm here today to talk about public safety and the plan for Stirling Street parking. And over the last 24 months, parking in Stirling Street has become a real health and safety issue for all of the residents that live there. I have a number of points I'm going to make. 1. Partial and full blocking of the walkway at the end of Sutherland Close. This is regular and happens 4 times a week. We are, as residents, unable to turn in our own close, and we have to back with limited views, either out of the close or in the close. 2. Partial and full blocking of views of Sutherland and Stirling Street while driving out of the close. Also, partial blocking of the view of the footpath left and right. 3. Incorrect parking of direction of vehicles on Stirling Street and Sutherland Close. 4. Partial and full lengths of cars parked on verges, laneways, lawns and driveways with no authorisation or requests made for any of these that have been reported to the City of Swan and documented. 5. Partial and full blocking of ingress zones from the footpath to cross Stirling Street. Hence, to cross Stirling Street, you have to walk into the middle of the road to view the traffic coming either way. The oldest resident in Southern Close is 92. 6. Partial and full parking in no parking zones which are signed. Multiple tickets have been issued by the City of Swan, and this is continuous and regular.
1 minute left, thank you.
7. Parking in PTA, that's Public Transport Authority, safety zones, regular. 8. Loading of small vehicles and commercial trucks in signed no parking and stopping areas, regular. Also, loading on street side in signed no stopping zones. In conclusion, all points I've made have been photographed and documented, and there's hundreds of them. The City of Swan Parking Department is aware of the issue. They visit this area 1 to 2 times per day, Monday to Saturday, and that's 1 to 2 times per day. Use of resources which shouldn't be used for this. They should be doing other things. There was a plan that was suggested to solve some of these issues almost a year ago. Residents voted on that, filled the forms in and sent them off. I have heard nothing, and nothing, as far as I know, nothing has been done.
Thank you, Mr Rees. That's your 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next public statement will be made by Mr Larry Perewan, and it's on item 4.1, additional use of garden centre at Stirling Street, Guildford. Thank you, Mr Perewan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
2 minutes.
My name is Larry Perewan. I live at 5 Sutherland Close, Guildford. I've lived in the street for 13 years and I work from home. My back fence adjoins the post office property where the nursery operations are now. I'm one of 3 residential dwellings that share this fence. In the last 2 years, the cafe operations have expanded out into the nursery, and the nursery potting operations in the so-called designated potting shed have moved to the far north-east back corner, right where my outdoor entertaining areas. I gathered that this was not to offend the cafe patrons from the noxious smells and activity from the nursery commercial potting operations as they sit eating and drinking in the outdoor garden. The fence at the back of my property is a 1.5 metre heritage picket fence with 5mm vertical gaps, which affords me no privacy from the daily, from the daily nursery workers potting plants using all sorts of manures, fertilisers and various other potting type chemicals within 2 metres of my outdoor area.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
These products, along with a large amount of rubbish, are stored in this area. My outdoor pergola area is where I entertain, eat, relax, and I used to work on my laptop but don't anymore due to the closeness of the workers and the private nature of my work. On many occasions the workers will be on their private phones either talking or listening to music and occasionally using foul language whilst the continual banging and clattering of the plant potting production goes on. Also, on some occasions, workers would urinate at my back fence, literally 1 metre from where I sat. There is a lot more that I could mention, but I think all of you can see that this commercial work location is not suitable on the boundary fence of a residential property. The fence is not fit for purpose. I feel that the denial of my privacy and exposure to noxious and obnoxious work activities are preventing me from living my normal lifestyle on my own, in my own home. This is because of the actions of the owners of this business. On no occasion have I ever been consulted on any of these matters by the business owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perigin. The next speaker is Ms. Christine Hughes in relation to item 4.1 also. Thank you, Ms. Hughes. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report on this item, 4.1, which has just been the subject of other speakers, is deficient in many ways. Most serious, though, is the abject failure to identify, reference or even consider that this relates to a state-registered place of cultural heritage significance. There is quite a backstory to this item, including that it has a heritage building constructed in 1897. It had continuous use as a post office for nearly 120 years. It has contemporary uses, both approved and unapproved. And there is a basis for the current change of use, proposed change of use. Yet, under the heading background, there is a white space, the intentionally left blank kind of white space. Councillors, you could be forgiven for thinking that you're actually dealing with a vacant block. The Heritage Council has published a document called the Assessment Framework for Development on Heritage Sites, and it expressly identifies criteria to address change of use impacts.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
And it explicitly says a change of use that causes structural or environmental impact in places of heritage significance should be avoided. None of the articulated criteria in that document have even been referenced or considered by officers. Councillors, this was a dry site for 120 years. It's now a wet site. No consideration has been given to the volume of water applied on the site in recent years, and it matters because that has not occurred with the benefit of conditions that could mitigate against structural damage, rising damp, water egress. There's no conservation plan on this built on this site, and generally concessions are given where there is a commitment to conservation. This is not supported by the wider community and should be rejected. And finally, the protection of heritage requires much more than a wing and a prayer, which is what we have here. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person making a public statement is Miss Joyce Collins from Advanced Patios on behalf of the owners of an address in Rosebery Way, Bushmead. Thank you. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and staff. My name is Joyce and I'm here on behalf of Advanced Patios, and we represent Simon Hartland of 20 Rosebery Way in Bushmead. Simon has contracted us to build him a structure over his existing spa that will give him and his family shelter from the elements of the weather all year round. While Simon understands this structure will be located in a BAL FZ zone, we would like to point out the structure will be open on all 4 sides. It is not a shed or an enclosed structure and is not for storage of machinery or tools. The frame is to be constructed of steel, which is non-combustible, and the roof will be made of Stratco cool deck complying with AS 3959, including all flashings and required finishings to comply with the BAL. The structure is only 2.6 metres wide and 5.4 long and will be situated over an existing paved area with 500 mil away from the current pool and 500 off the current boundary wall. We at Advanced Patios will build the structure and will comply with all codes and rules currently in place and put in place by this council to make the structure safe. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And the next speaker is Mr Craig Graham from Oakland to speak about the proposed Kingsford Town Centre Precinct Structure Plan. Thank you, Mr Graham. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you and good evening, Mr Mayor, City of Swan Council and staff. My name is Craig Graham. I'm the Project Director for Oakland Communities. We're developing the new Kingsford estate out at Bullsbrook. My statement tonight is in regards to agenda item 4.2. It's the proposed Kingsford Town Centre Precinct Plan. Oakland at Kingsford is committed to building community infrastructure at Bullsbrook. In only our early stages of the project, we have already delivered for the community 3 new parks. We've made publicly accessible the Kitemunga Brook, and we've opened a new cafe in a parkland setting. However, the highest priority for new and existing Bullsbrook residents, and it's by far the number one question we get asked, is when do we get our new town centre? Oakland is committed to delivering this town centre as soon as possible. I therefore want to advise the Council tonight that Oakland strongly supports the Office's recommendation to approve the precinct plan subject to the modifications listed.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
In fact, we've already made some of the modifications and prepared an updated precinct plan. That's how keen we are. There are 2 outstanding matters which relate to main roads and DFES, but these items will be dealt with at more detail at a subdivision stage. So, for Oakland to invest in, to deliver the new town centre as soon as possible for the Bullsbrook community, we seek Council support tonight to approve the Office's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Graham. And the final speaker making a public statement is Ms Lee Symington from the Friends of the Woodbridge Bushlands Group, and it's item C1.4, Devon Street, Woodbridge. Thank you, Lee. You've got 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. I'm speaking, as I said, on behalf of the Woodbridge Bushlands, and I'm here to tell you that time is running out. It's running out for the City of Swan and the community and our environment. Tonight we have a very straightforward and simple decision to take back the land on Devon Street. This seems like such a wonderful opportunity for the City of Swan and councillors to have a large impact with one very small move. For 15 years, our community has been speaking to the council about taking this land back, and now is the moment to do it. Please take action. The site is zoned Parks and Recs, and we request that we take back the land and allow it to be used for quendas, echidna, bird life, habitat and rehabilitation. This little piece of land is home to over 118 trees, of which 34 are old growth and well over 100 years old. The Department of Transport and Metronet have declared no interest in the site. WAPC have declared the best use remain Parks and Rec, and are looking for the City of Swan to take back this land.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
There's a large gas pipeline over a large section of the site, and this limits what can actually be done on that site, but makes it perfect for rehabilitation and use for conservation. Ownership of the land is very important to us because it limits what we can do with the land. The ownership has an effect on who has access, the insurances that we can take out, and grants that we can get for the land to obtain to conserve and rehabilitate the site. We plan to build a bird hide, native tuck-of areas and Aboriginal cultural exchange programs. Last year we obtained a permit from the WAPC to rehabilitate the site, and today it's got 129 new grass and underbush plantings on it. And it's been hand-watered twice a week through the hottest summer ever by the residents. WAPC have given financial and in-kind support, but their mandate is to find an end manager for the site, such as the City of Swan. Time is running out. Please seize the moment. Take action. Don't let this go on any further. One small step for mankind. One small step for man, one large step for mankind. This is what was said.
That is your 2 minutes.
One small step for the City of Swan, one large step for the environment.
That deals with all the public statements, councillors. Item 7 is petitions. Are any members of the public wishing to table a petition? Any councillors have a petition? Then we'll move on to item 8, deputations. Deputations were dealt with at the agenda forum held last Wednesday, the 23rd of February. Item 9 is announcements by the presiding member. I have 2 very short statements, everyone. I'm sure I speak for all residents of the City of Swan, and we wish a very quick conclusion to the conflict in the Ukraine, and we wish all their residents peace as soon as possible. If the council doesn't finish the business on the agenda tonight, this meeting will be reconvened next Wednesday, the 9th of March at 6 p.m. Thank you. We now move to item 10, which is members' questions, and 10.1 answers to questions which were taken on notice, and there's a number from Councillor Johnson from the 2nd of February. And 10.2 questions which due notice has been given. There are 10 questions asked by Councillor Johnson. Have you got anything arising out of those answers, Councillor?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. They're good.
All good, thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Being no other questions, we move on to item 11, leave of absence. Anyone requesting leave of absence, Mr. CEO?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a leave of absence request from Councillor Parry, and it's from the 7th of March through until the 13th of March inclusive.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that application? Move Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that carried. Item 12 is confirmation of the minutes, and I require a resolution to confirm the minutes of the council meeting of the 2nd of February 2022. I need a mover and a seconder. Move Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. And just for your information, councillors, the minutes from the special meeting held Monday night of this week have not been prepared, so they'll be at the next council meeting. Item 13, any business left over from the previous meeting. And item 13.8, it's on page 19 of your agenda, councillors, the Reconciliation Action Plan. And I'll just read out the preamble. The City of Swan Reconciliation Action Plan, Innovate RAP, from December 2021 to December 2023 was presented to Council at the 15th of December 2021 at the Ordinary Council meeting. At the meeting, a procedural motion was passed and Council resolved that the matter lie on the table to enable further consultation with the Reconciliation Action Plan Advisory Group on the language and terminology used in the document. The matter may now be taken from the table, and I'm seeking a motion to do that.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
If it's a procedural motion to decide that the matter lie on the table, is it not also a procedural motion to take it off the table?
Well, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to take the matter off the table.
I'm saying, Mr. Mayor, there is no such procedural motion here. So to move it off the table, the proper process would be a motion on notice from a councillor. That's 15 days' notice, so we can't do that.
I'll just defer to the governance officer. I'm taking my lead from her.
Page 25, list of procedural motions.
Thank you, Ms Albrecht.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the procedural motion that the matter lie on the table, if you look to the effect if carried on page 24, it says the matter requires a motion to take the matter from the table. The mover and the seconder to take the matter from the table may be any member, and the debate resumes at the point of interruption.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, but you need a motion, and it's not a procedural motion to do that. The motion must be a motion on notice from a council with 15 days' notice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if it's a procedural motion to put the matter on the table, it would be a procedural motion to take the matter off the table. I think the Interpretation Act would support the view that if you're able to do something, you're able to undo it.
That's true, but it would be listed as a procedural motion if it has to be a procedural motion.
Well, Councillor Johnson, my ruling is that I'm calling for a motion from a mover and a seconder to take it off the table so we can deal with the matter. And you have two options. You can either agree with my decision or you can dissent from it, and I'll put it to the council. So I've got a mover in Councillor Bowman and a seconder in Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare it carried. So the debate resumes on the amendment, and I'll just read this out so it's clear for people in the public gallery and also for councillors. The debate resumes at the point of the interruption, and councillors, with the exception of Councillors Henderson, Parry, Catalano and Kiley, have already debated, but they may debate the amendment. Councillor Henderson will have a right of reply to close the debate on the amendment, and the vote will be taken on the amendment. The debate will then return to the substantive motion, and councillors, with the exception of Councillors Kiley, Parry, Catalano and McCulloch, who have already spoken on the substantive motion, may debate the substantive motion. And Councillor Kiley, you'll have a right of reply, and a vote will be taken on the substantive motion. The recommendation was that Council resolve to adopt the draft City of Swan Reconciliation Plan, Innovate RAP December 2021 to December 2023, and authorise the CEO to approve any minor changes that may be required before the document is finalised for printing. So the part of the amendment was to amend the reference of owners within the Reconciliation Action Plan to traditional custodians, and the reason for the amendment is to ensure that the language and the terminology is inclusive and respectful, and that was moved by Councillor Henderson and seconded by Councillor Parry.
Question, Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Kiley.
Would staff be willing to... I know we got some advice from this sent through in an email probably six weeks ago possibly about the interchangeability of traditional owners and traditional custodians. Could I get some advice from what that... a reminder of what that advice was?
Did you want to refer to Mr Bishop online?
I will. Mr Bishop, did you hear the question?
Mr Mayor, I did. I understand the question is a verbal summary of what that advice is. In the addendum to the reports before Council is a summary of the background information collected. Essentially, from consideration and discussion with organisations such as Reconciliation Australia, local elders, other government organisations, the advice that we got back is that there is no strong view that it should be one or the other. In other words, there isn't a strong rule of thumb or rule that says it should be traditional custodians or traditional owners. As a general rule, both terms are used across documents and interchangeable. There was some advice that we received to the fact that some people prefer the use of traditional owners when it's talking about local elders, and the use of traditional custodians when talking more broadly about elders within the Noongar Nation. But that wasn't a strong view across all stakeholders we engaged with. That was just some view that was given. So essentially, it appears that it depends on who the stakeholder is as to which term they prefer, and both terms are equally used.
Thank you. You're satisfied with that, Councillor Kiley? Councillor Johnson, you have a question?
Question. So has the report been changed in any way whilst it's been lying on the table?
No. So I'm asking, if any other councillors wish to enter debate on the amendment? Councillor Kiley.
Just briefly, Mayor, we've heard from staff, we've heard from the Reconciliation Action Plan Committee that they are interchangeable, and I think if we made the point, the deliberate point of removing one of them, particularly the word owners, we are effectively making a point that we don't need to. The Reconciliation Action Plan Committee are happy with the interchangeability of the terms as they appear through the Reconciliation Action Plan. So I think we don't need to make a point of removing specifically and unnecessarily removing the word owners out of the document. So I would be voting against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the amendment.
Question.
Question, Councillor Johnson.
Can the amendment be read out?
Yes, it's at the bottom of page 13, amendment to the motion, and it was item 2, amend the reference of owners within the Reconciliation Action Plan traditional custodians, two traditional custodians, and the reason for the amendment is to ensure that the language and the terminology used is inclusive and respectful.
Just a question, what does that mean? Amend the reference of owners within the Reconciliation Action Plan, traditional custodians. Shouldn't it say two traditional custodians? It's Councillor Henderson's
It's Councillor
amendment.
Henderson's amendment. I'll defer to him.
That is correct, Mr Mayor.
So it should say two traditional custodians. Thank you for clarifying that. I'll ask again, is there any other speakers for or against the amendment? Then you have a right of reply. Thank you, Councillor Henderson, before I put the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. There is an amendment to the motion as noted, and then after the word plan it should say two. Councillors, thank you to staff and the committee for assessing this and coming up with the addendum for us to be able to review and consider. The important issue here is one of how do you define the question of the overall use of the term owner and the overall use of the term custodians, particularly within the Aboriginal community, of which I've got some background. I got raised in a town with many Aboriginal friends. Now, the important thing here is that if you go back to the I think about 1976, the law was changed to recognise that Aboriginals could own land. And I think there's 134,000 hectares of land throughout Australia off the top of my head. There's actually owned by Aboriginals. The point is, and this is the key point for me, is that by using the word owners, it mixes the message. And I do believe that all those other people in the Aboriginal community out there are effectively being left out or isolated because they are custodians. They're all custodians. They've all been custodians of the land since they were born and their forebears. So for me, it is about being, if you like, respectful, to respect and understand that we have custodians of the land as well as owners. And I think we should ensure that we respect and work with the community in a way that brings us forward in reconciliation. So I strongly believe that traditional custodians covers everyone, and that's what we should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the amendment, councillors. Those in favour, raise your hand. Of Councillor Jones, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Congdon, Councillor Parry, Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch, and I can't see Councillor Prodovnik. So I've got 7. The motion or the amendment is lost, which takes us back to the substantive motion. Does anyone wish to debate from the substantive motion, for or against, that hasn't already spoken?
I'll just ask that it be put, Mayor, if that's all right.
Well, I was going to hand back to you to close the debate, Councillor Coley. If you don't wish to, I'm going to now put the substantive amendment about adopting the Reconciliation Action Plan. Those in favour? And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. And have I got some members of the Reconciliation Action Plan in the gallery tonight? It's just hard to recognise everyone. I was advised that a couple of members will be coming, but I thank them for their hard contribution, and I'm very glad that that motion was passed unanimously by Council.
Mr Mayor, I wish to move the motion, if that's okay.
Just hang on a second, Councillor. We've still got a few items to go. Thanks, Councillor Parry. Which takes us to item 13.9, Councillor Bowman, club signage on sporting reserves. It's on page 59 of the agenda. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the Council resolve to establish a framework that cuts red tape for the easy approval and installation of club signage, including advertising promotional by tenant sporting clubs and sporting reserves.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zanino. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I'll declare it carried unanimously. Item 13.10 on page 61, councillors. Councillor Bowman, review of ward boundaries and representation. Thank you.
Just waiting for it to come up on the screen, Mr Mayor. But Mr Mayor, I move that Council resolves to undertake a review of ward boundaries and representation, with the focus being to consider reducing the number of councillors to 14.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Being no seconder, that motion lapses. On to the next item. It's item 13.11. It's on page 65. Councillor Bowman, delegation to Tender Review Committee. Thank you. And councillors, this requires an absolute majority of council. Thank you.
Yep, I'm just waiting for it
to come up.
Mr Mayor, I move that Council resolves. If I can have it on screen, please.
The mouse is playing up, so just bear with us for a moment. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I move that Council resolve to amend Delegation 1 Tender Review Committee by the addition of the following conditions on delegation sub-delegation. A, up to a maximum value of $10 million, and B, variance no greater than 10% of budget estimates.
Call for a seconder. Councillor Kiley, is there anyone against? Thank you. Your reason, Councillor Bowman?
The reason is the current delegation is ambiguous in that the current interpretation neither provides for a ceiling on tender amounts to be accepted, nor provides for a limit on the amount of dollars or percentage over budget and or future budgets that is permitted to be accepted or committed by the TRC. The delegation of accepting tenders to a tender review committee is not a very common practice within metropolitan local government. Decisions that require an absolute majority cannot be delegated. However, it is unclear whether commitment of council funds above adopted budgets and cost estimates for future budgets require an absolute majority. The full council should decide on very significant expenditure, not a committee of council that could result in only 3 or 4 if there was a split decision out of 15 councillors making this decision. And the last reason, Mr Mayor, the City of Swan 2021 to 2031 Strategic Community Plan states the governance vision for 2021 to 2031 is to city provides good governance displayed through our accountable, transparent and fiscal responsible management of competing community demands and sustainable and optional use of city resources and provide accountable and transparent leadership.
Thank you. I've got a mover in Councillor Bowman, a second in Councillor Kiley. Is there anyone against? You're against, Councillor Parry. Do you wish to debate it? Thank you. You can open the debate. Councillor Bowman, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this notice of motion is all about accountability, it's about transparency and it's about fiscal responsible management of competing community demands, all of which apparently, according to the City of Swan strategic community plans, you all agreed were extremely important. Councillors, I was unable to find, and I researched well, any other local government that has a tender review committee. Perhaps it could be said that the City of Swan is blazing the way and others may follow. How I would be lying to you and myself if I thought this, as no other local government has followed this path, and the City of Swan has had a TRC for some time. Councillors, the reason why is because there are issues with a tender review committee and what they can and can't do, and this comes down to what is delegated. Councillors, if there was no delegation of the TRC, then all the recommendations that go to the TRC would need to come to Council, which is exactly the same as what should be occurring for other committees, as none have delegations. But that is an issue for another day, councillors. Councillors, I think we would all agree that dealing with tenders in a quick, efficient way, especially with the way the building industry is at the moment, is important. But we need to always make sure this is done in accordance with legislation and prudent financial management. If we want no delays, We can simply up the delegation amount to the CEO to $5 million, like some large local governments have, and you can't make it any quicker and any more efficient. However, one small problem. For any tenders that are over budget, which is this notice of motion is all about, the CEO couldn't accept any tender that was over 10% budget. I do, however, note that the upcoming tender review committee has been cancelled, as was the last two, as there was no items for decision. So perhaps there is a need to look at the internal processes of how long it takes for the time a tender closes to when it's presenting to the TRC, and a focus on the administrative process should be first considered in regards to the amount of time taken. Mr Mayor, the current delegation to the TRC is ambiguous and is an area of concern, and this is for whether the TRC has delegation to accept tenders over budget amounts or budget estimates. The officer's comments show that 25% of all tenders in 2020-2021 were 10% over budget estimates. Councillors, this is a staggering amount. But let's move past this and let me pose this question to you all. Where did the extra funds come from? For each of those tenders that were over budget, I cannot advise you of this, and no member of the TRC can either, as at the time accepting a tender that is over the budget amount or budget estimates, there is no identification of where the extra funds will come from. But don't take my word for it. Have a look at the previous tender reports, councillors. But please don't forget, there was only a few months ago that all tender reports were confidential and the community could not view any tender committee reports. Councillors, this is my opinion, and let me state this again before someone jumps in with a point of order, as perhaps they've missed what I've said. This is, in my opinion, is what is called being fiscally irresponsible. When you have a budget that is for $3 million and the tender is for $3.5 million, the extra $500,000 should be identified where it's to come from and the amount should be reallocated. It shouldn't be that much of an issue, as after all, councillors, we here at the City of Swan do a budget amendment every month for items as low as a few $100s, which is also quite a unique practice in the local government industry. I'm aware, Council, that staff try to fix the problem in item 2.3 that was pulled last month by changing the delegation to provide the following. If the value of the award of the tender is to exceed the pre-tender estimate, the source of additional funds must be identified. The report does not provide any details of why staff recommended to Council this change, but my thoughts were that perhaps it was because they knew this was an issue with the current process. And given I've raised the issue, it needs to be addressed.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Mr Mayor, this to me is a fairly easy issue. It is a grey area of whether we have delegation or not. Those big items, councillors, we should be all making that decision, not 3 or 4 councillors. We need to put some rules in place, Mr Mayor. We need to become more prudent in our financial responsibility, and hence my motion.
Thank you. Councillor Colledge, the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be brief. Councillors, I've got 2 parts to this motion, and I thank Councillor Bowman for bringing this forward. The first item is the big picture items. As it says in the officer's report, the Stock Roads, the Ellenbrook Leisure Centre and the Swan Active Midland tenders for the work being done there. So they're the only tenders that have been above the $10 million mark. And there's something that obviously Councillor Bowman and myself think that should those sort of issues, those sort of items, the big picture items, should come before Council for us all to have a say in, because it has an impact, a large impact on our overall budget. It's a major expense for the ratepayers, and we all represent different parts of the City of Swan, and we should have some input into that. So it's the big picture items, and the other part to it was the items that are going to have a clear impact on the budget, those that are over 10% of the budgeted item. And you see also from the officer's report, there were only 8 tenders in the 2021 year that it would have been referred to Council for authorisation. So it's not a lot of items. So we've got 8 that were above the budgeted amount by 10%, more than 10%, that would have come to Council. So 8 items. I'm sure we could have accommodated those. And there are only 3 items in the previous 12 months that we could have dealt with at Council as well. And I'm sure, given that issues such as Stock Road. There are councillors who are from that area, represent that area, but may not have a say in what's actually or how we actually spend the money. There are councillors from the Midland area who maybe are not on the Tenders Review Committee, but may want to have some say in how that money's spent. Same with Ellenbrook, Pierce Ward. You would expect that the Pierce Ward councillors, all of them, would have some say in how the funding for Ellenbrook Pool, but unfortunately not all of them are on the Tender Review Committee. So this change simply ensures that we all, those relevant councillors, all get a say. In fact, we all get a say in those things. Those that are above $10 million, those that are above 10%. So simple as that. Simple change. There's not many there. There's only 8 that are 8 in one instance and 3 in the other. So we've got a total of 11, if my maths is correct. So please support the motion. It's a simple change, and we all get to have a look at the big picture items, which we all should. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Parry.
I'll be very quick, Mr Mayor. First things first, for the exception of Councillor Knight, Councillor Howlett and Councillor Bowman, all of us voted for the DOA. It's as simple as that. So we all voted the way to do the delegation of authority as it is today. So 5 months later, we're already going to change it. Is that the right thing to do? I don't think so. Second thing is, we all unanimously voted for the budget last year as well, councillors. Well, sorry, bar the new councillors, of course. All 12 of us voted unanimously in regards to the budget being set aside for that. We all have a say on the budget. All of us had our workshops over the 6 months as well as we start, 4 months starting as at tomorrow. We will continue, we'll start off our budget negotiations as well. And by the way, last thing is very simple. In the special meeting that we had, we all agreed, all new councillors and the old councillors and everybody else agreed that the TRC had that delegated authority, and also agreed that the members of the TRC had that delegation of authority. So you all had a say to do that. So it's all transparent, ladies and gentlemen. We all voted this way, and that's why we've got to keep it the same way it is until October next time when the DI comes back again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, Councillor Henderson.
Mayor, I'll try and be brief. I have been on the Tender Review Committee for some time, and there have been circumstances where I might not necessarily have agreed with other committee members, and I did try to change the system such that we would perhaps need an absolute majority to carry an item, or in a similar way bring significant items back to council. The TRC at the time did not want to go down that path. I also want to recognise, though, that tendering timeframes for big projects can be complicated, as has been noted, and I understand that, and it simply means that staff are going to have to tighten up their timeframes to be able to get results based on this. I think the proposal is in fact a step in the right direction. The Tender Review Committee can continue to do the mundane work, I'll call it, and we can get a better overview of how we spend our money at a higher level through this item. So I support Councillor Bowman in bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Yeah, I'll speak briefly for, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Bowman for bringing this situation to Council's attention. I think what's happened here is that we've had a tender review committee with a delegated authority and a way of working that is probably quite historic and probably has been around for an awful long time. Yet during that time, the city has grown to the size it is now, where it appears that regularly decisions are being made of over $10 million, or where there is a variance in the estimated cost of greater than 10%. This is a good time to pause and say we need to start to bring these decisions to council. We need to change the way we're working, and I think it's the beginning of an important process of reform in our decision making that we need to go through. So I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers against? Speakers for? Councillor Bowman, you have 3 minutes for your right of reply. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, just quickly, yes, except for the 3 new councillors, you did vote on the delegations. 12 months, you review the delegation. That doesn't mean that if something comes up in between that improves the delegation, that we shouldn't put it on hold. Councillor Parry is right as well. All councillors except for the new 3 councillors voted on the budget. The budget, but not what is happening with the TRC. The TRC is committing extra funds above and beyond the budget. Mr Mayor, the TRC allegedly cannot reallocate funds from one account to the other. You are not allowed to delegate to a committee a power of absolute majority, which reallocation of funds are. This is all about prudent financial management, making sure that councillors as a whole are involved in those big items and making that decision.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, myself, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson and Councillor McCulloch. I declare that motion carried. And Councillor Prodovnik, sorry, I didn't look at my screen. The only 2 against were Councillor Congdon and Councillor Parry. Which takes us to the next item, item 13.12, Councillor Bowman, West Bullsbrook Water Supply. It's on page 70 of the agenda. Thank you, councillors.
Mr Mayor, and I just remind councillors, these are all held over from last month, that council resolves to request a precautionary measure for the Department of Defence to recommence providing residents previously supplied with alternative drinking water until a clean and safe water supply is available and connected, and 2, lobby both the state government and the federal governments to ensure suitable infrastructure is provided in a timely manner to allow for all residents of West Bullsbrook in the PFAS contaminated zone, or I like to call it the red zone, to be able to connect to the supply of clean and safe water, and that the cost of connection for all residents in the zone be fully paid for by the federal government. Mr Mayor, my reasons is unclear whether those bores previously tested and have been found to be below acceptable levels will continue to be, are still below these levels. The community has been advised that only the 27 properties within the PFAS contaminated zone, red zone, whose bores were tested and found to be contaminated, will be provided a free connection to a clean and safe water supply. And Mr Mayor, the City of Swan 2021 to 2031 Strategic Community Plan states global goals set out by the United Nations Goal 6, clean water. The City recognises its role in collaborating with key agencies to ensure these standards are maintained and any deficiency are addressed immediately. And I can quote S1, safe and health community, B2, infrastructure that meets community needs, and G 1.3, promote and advocate on behalf of the City of Swan.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. At this point, Councillor Prodovnik, I need you to say something, so you're... Oh, there you are. Okay. Thank you. I'm now going to put the... sorry, is there anyone against the motion? Being no one against, I declare that carried unanimously, which takes us to page... if you can say something, Councillor Prodovnik, and then your screen will appear on our screen, because it's coming up with Mr Bushett as the last speaker. So just say something. Can you hear me now? I can, thank you very much, and hopefully that'll resolve our technical problem this end. Beautiful, well done. Thank you. We're now on page 15, councillors, and moving to part B, and it's the adoption of those recommendations contained in items... not withdrawn, but they are withdrawn. So, for the benefit of members observing the meeting, the Council uses an en bloc method of decision-making. This means that agenda items where Council supports the officer's recommendations are not debated separately. One vote is taken on all of the items and the officer recommendation therefore becomes the decision of Council. The following items in Part B and C have been withdrawn for debate in accordance with the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2019 and will be dealt with Council individually. In Part B, Item 2.1, Policy Review. Item 2.2, Proposed Policy Use of Pesticides. Item 4.1, consideration of submissions for additional use of a garden centre in Stirling Street, Guildford. Item 4.2, proposed Kingsford Town Centre in various properties in Bullsbrook. Item 4.4, State Administrative Tribunal, reconsideration of building envelope in Litchfield Parade, Jane Brook. Item 4.7, patio addition with asset protection zone in Rosebery Way, Bushmead. Item 4.8, extensions to showroom and storage in Bonner Drive, Malaga. Item 4.9, statutory planning decisions under delegated authority. Item 5.1, Lloyd Street Bridge concept design. Item 5.2, Allenbrook Leisure Centre construction. Item 5.3, provision of play space shade. Item 5.4, Baskerville drainage study. Item 5.5, road resurfacing Arbour Drive, Allenbrook. Item 6.9, sale of land, rates and charges outstanding for more than 3 years. Item 6.2, 21-22 budget review. Are there any other councillors? They're the ones withdrawn for debate. The following items have not been withdrawn for individual consideration and will be dealt with via an en bloc vote. Therefore, the officer's recommendation will become the decision of council. And in Part B, it's 4.3, amendment to Allenbrook Town Centre development. Item 4.5, proposed demolition of existing dwelling and construction of 2 group dwellings, Chatham Road, Woodbridge. Item 4.6, common fencing on the common boundary and front setback area in Parkside Gardens, Balladura. Item 5.6, consultation bollard installation, Stirling Square, Guildford. 5.7, installation of a children's crossing, Suffolk Street, Caversham. 6.1, list of accounts paid December 2021. Item 6.2, financial management report for the period ending 31st December 2021.
Mr Mayor, I think that's in conflict with what you read out earlier for the other.
6.2 is it Councillor Henderson? I haven't got 6.2 listed for...
No, 6.2. You read out 6.2 earlier.
6.10. Thank you. 6.3, list of accounts paid January 2022. 6.4, financial management report for period ending 31st January 2022. 6.5, budget adjustments 2021-22 and March to March 2022. 6.6, change in the basis of valuation. 6.7, proposed new fee or charge, Swan Valley gift cards. And I could refer you to page 39 of the run sheet for a new revised recommendation, if you have any questions. 6.8, annual investment strategy and portfolio. 7.1, compliance audit return 1st of January 2021 to December 31st 2021. And Part C, 3.1, taking by consent portion of 7 Stock Road, Bullsbrook for the Stock Road upgrade and extension. And note that item 8.1, main roads WA correspondence is for tabling only. For your information, no decision is required. Councillor Parry, you alerted me you wish to move the motion at this stage.
I think we should put the vote first, Mr Mayor.
Yes, you're quite correct. So, councillors, on the en bloc items that have not been withdrawn for discussion individually, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor McCulloch, seconded Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare all those items in Part B not withdrawn for individual consideration carried. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Due to the importance of the issue, I wish to raise a motion that Council resolve to 1. Bring forward item 5.1, Lloyd Street Bridge concept design, and consider as the next item of business, please.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Congdon. Is there anyone against? Being no one against, I declare that motion carried unanimously. Councillors, did you have a reason? Thank you, Councillor Parry.
It's a good idea. No, that public interest in the idea demonstrated by the number of people in attendance.
Thank you. So the next item considered by council will be item 5.1, and that'll be on page 31. Thank you, councillors. And Councillor Johnson, you're first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
And it's on page 447 of the agenda. Thank you, councillors.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to request Main Roads WA prepare a new concept design for the Lloyd Street Bridge. The new concept design should be a longer span bridge that has a minimal environmental impact on the Helena River floodplain and is approved by the traditional landowners. 2, record the reason for changing the officer recommendation is that the community are wanting to preserve the environment of the Helena River.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howard, I was just about to lapse the motion. Is there anyone against? Yes, you may.
If this motion gets carried, does that basically overtake the previous motion at the last meeting? I think no. Was that the last one or the one in December?
In December, yes.
Okay, which was that the Helena Valley Alliance and traditional owners be included in design to finalisation?
I'll just get it.
Thank you.
If you've got it handy there, Mr CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think Councillor Catalano is referring to item 2 in that resolution, which was include the Helena River Alliance and traditional owners in progressing the bridge design to finalisation.
Yep.
Thank you.
So it would take that would no longer be the case.
Well, this is a new motion, which would supersede the motion of December.
Okay.
So I've got a mover and a seconder. Is there anyone against? There is. You wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Johnson, you have 5 minutes for your debate. Thank you. Yes, what is your amendment?
That that second clause be included in this particular motion that was approved in December.
I don't think it would negate that ongoing discussion with Councillor Johnson's if it was successful.
Well, I'll include it as an amendment, Councillor Catalano. And item 2 of the December meeting was include the Helena River Alliance and traditional owners in progressing the bridge design to finalisation. Is that acceptable to you, Councillor Johnson?
Yes.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Howlett, yes?
Yes.
Is there anyone against the amendment? It's been accepted by the mover and the seconder, so it will become part of the substantive motion, which we'll now debate because there's people against. Councillor Johnson, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, councillors, this is one of the most important issues I've seen in my 6 years on council. In fact, probably is the most important issue. The Helena River, as it passes through Midland, is one of the most beautiful but little-known parts of the city of Swan. There's a wonderful walk along the riverbank through mature woodland, and even there are some lakes there that you can walk past. And then there is the extraordinary ancient Aboriginal rock shelter, less than 1.5 kilometres from the centre of Midland, where we are now. And further along the Helena River, there are more ancient sites. Councillors, we should be doing what we can to preserve this environment and not dump, I think it's 100,000 cubic metres of fill on the wetland, tens of metres from this rock shelter. With some vision, we could have a Helena Riverbank ancient walking trail that could be the pride of the city of Swan. Instead, we have this proposal for an unimaginative bridge, which is little more than a causeway with a short span culvert bridge across the Helena River. The wetland and floodplain will be damaged and the continuity of the floodplain ruined. If we go ahead with this design, it will be our own Duke and Gorge moment. But wait, councillors, there's still time to fix this. We can ask for a new concept design. with a wider span bridge that does not impact the river, the floodplain, or the fauna that live there, the frogs, the turtles, the quenda, the bandicoots and other animals. Imagine walking along the future Helena River bank walking trails. It passes under a beautiful, elegant, long-span bridge, maybe a cable stay bridge, past the ancient rock shelter and through the woodland. It would be something our city and community and traditional owners could be proud of. What we need right now, at this important time, is leadership and vision. We also need to recognise the traditional owners of the Helena River and the surrounding woodland. And councillors, we had a comprehensive set of statements from the traditional owners sent to us this afternoon, which I hope you've all read. Our Reconciliation Action Plan acknowledges that the Whadjuk people of the Nyungar Nation are the traditional custodians of the land, and acknowledges their continuing connection to land, waters and community. It also says, through engagement and partnerships, the city recognises the significance of their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land and waters. If, as we have just voted, we are committed to reconciliation, and we do really believe that the traditional owners are the custodians of the land, we would not be proposing to proceed with a bridge design that the traditional owners have so clearly stated they do not want. And we've heard from Senator Dorinda Cox the same thing. We've heard the traditional owners do not want any piles or piers in the riverbank. But now we hear the design has 160 piles, micro piles. The bridge may have Aboriginal Heritage Act Section 18 approval, but then so did the destruction of the Juukan Gorge Caves with the resulting executive and board spill. In my view, the criteria for an acceptable bridge is a single span bridge that does not impact on the environment of the Helena River wetland and the floodplain and meets the traditional owner criteria of no piers in the floodplain. I also think that a highly qualified architect designed bridge that can be an attraction in its own right would be an asset we could all live with. It might cost more and take longer to build, but it's worth it. On Tuesday, Council was given a copy of the Lloyd Street Bridge economic analysis. On page 20, it tells us that the bridge has a net present value of $607 million, an internal rate of return of 47%, and a payback period of 3 years. That's an extraordinarily good investment. If we compare the net present value of the bridge of $607 million with the cost of building the bridge of about $44 million, I think it's $40 million in the budget, it tells you that the state can clearly afford to spend more money building a better bridge that will meet our environmental objectives. It is clearly well worthwhile.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
New concept design. I've got that much left. Concurrently with creating a new concept design for a single span bridge, we can update the traffic modelling for Midland that supports the need for the bridge. We can confirm a business case for the bridge. We have been given one, but I think we need to look at it again once we've got the new costs. We'll see the costs and benefits. We can put in place the project governance framework that's currently missing, and we can start advocating for the additional funds to build an acceptable, environmentally friendly bridge that our traditional owners and our community will support, and which we as a council and a city can be proud of. The existing design is not aligned to our biodiversity strategy or the strategic community plan with its emphasis on environmental values. And as it does not respect the views of the traditional owners, it is not aligned with our Reconciliation Action Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Jensen. How much have you got left?
Just that much, Mr.
Please read it.
Thank you. The vision I think we should have is for an architect-designed long-span bridge, retention of the Helena River wetlands, riverbanks and floodplain, respect for the traditional owners and their ancient sites, a future Helena River walking trail. As a council, this is what we should be advocating for. It is aligned with all our policies, and it's what a broad representative group of the community want. The economic modelling shows that an environmentally friendly bridge is quite affordable. This is why I'm asking council tonight to support my motion for a new concept design.
Thank you. Councillor Howard is the seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My councillors, the community have been repeatedly calling for a redesign of the Lloyd Street Bridge. The need for the bridge is not in question, but addressing the community's concerns of the current concept design is. The bridge, I understand, we all know, has been 20 years in the planning, so there really is no reason why we are not planning for simply the best bridge that we can possibly have. When you know better, you do better. and we know that the damage we will be inflicting on both cultural and environmental sensitivities to that area by not requesting a new concept design. The pressure to fit into the Great Eastern Highway Bypass project should not dictate the design, nor force us to accept the current concept design we've been shown to fit into the time frame. This is our bridge. The Great Eastern Highway Bypass project did not exist 20 years ago. It's not relevant to the Lloyd Street Bridge. It's our bridge.
Thank you, Speaker. If I could ask the people in the audience to refrain your applause. It can be interruptive and it's just wasting time. We've got a lot of issues to get through tonight. If you could respect my request. Speaker against the motion, please. No speakers against? Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Congdon, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor and councillors. My opposition to the motion is that there are no certainties that the state government is going to pick up the difference in the cost in a new design of a bridge. Furthermore, if the government does not pick up the cost in a new design of the bridge, then it'll have to be the ratepayers. There has been an indication of a $20 million plus a shortfall in the design of a possible new bridge, and I don't know and I can't qualify that. These are the numbers being thrown around external of the building, and I don't think the City of Swan ratepayers are in a position to carry that type of debt moving forward.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Bowman, please.
Councillors, I've received hundreds of emails, been provided pages and pages and pages of reports and other documents, all of which I have read, and I've read through entire pieces of legislation regarding this item over the last 4 months, as I wanted to make sure that I was fully informed to make a decision. I'm pretty sure that I've acknowledged and responded to every person that sent me an email or phoned me to discuss this item, and if I have missed someone, I do apologise. Mr Mayor, there are two things that are very clear to me. Nearly everyone sees the need for a bridge. Some may have different views and opinions on how many lanes, what sort of traffic will use it, etc. But I have not heard anyone say we don't need a bridge at Lloyd Street. I see there will be a number of potential benefits once the bridge at this location is constructed, but also acknowledge the concerns raised about the amount of traffic gridlock in Midland already. But this is not because of the bridge. After all, it is not built yet. But it's because of questionable state government decisions made by the government of the day. Now, this is no way having a go at this current state government, but it's all state governments for at least the last 20 plus years. So this is both blue and red and anything in between. The second thing is there is still misinformation and uninformed comments being sprouted and provided by both those in favour of the current design and those against the current design. Many people tend to only pick up on certain pieces of information and facts, and often like to fill in the gaps themselves. I believe this has further complicated the situation. To everyone listening, I would like to say that I do not agree with how the Section 18 was attained. I've read the reports, and it's my view that the traditional owners were not given the respect that they deserve. Yes, a Section 18 has been attained. Tick the box. But I question the process and whether it was fair and reasonable. Some may not be aware, but there's new legislation that will replace how Section 18s are attained, that will prevent what I have read occurring again. This, I understand, may be the result of not only a certain mining company's behaviour, but other examples as well. Was the Section 18 rushed through under the current and much easier process? I do not know, but I do have an opinion on this. Should the new process have been considered? Legally, no, it didn't. Morally, yes, I believe it should have. Councillors, the way I see this issue, the decision that we need to make, if I can simplify it, is what is worth more, the environmental costs or the financial costs. Is the environmental cost, which we have heard in detail from numerous deputations and through many, many email, phone calls, etc., worth it? The destruction of wetlands, the chopping down of a number of trees, the loss of habitat for endangered species, the list goes on. My answer is no, it is not. Then there is the financial cost. is an extra 10 million, 20 million, or probably in reality significantly more, a cost that we should contemplate. A $20 million extra cost to the city represents a 5% rate increase to every ratepayer in the City of Swan for the next 4 years. If I was to ask every ratepayer if they would be happy to have a 5% rate increase imposed on them all for the next 4 years to enable a bridge redesign to protect the environment, I would suggest that there would be a majority no response. I simply cannot agree to a decision that will cost ratepayers millions and millions more money. This leaves me to a very difficult position.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
What's your point of order, Councillor Johnson? And if you can...
There's nothing about funding in the motion. It's merely about
doesn't have to
preparing
be
a new concept design. So the statements are incorrect.
Sorry, Councillor Johnson, I think you also mentioned some financial costs. So, Councillor Bowman, I rule that you have no point of order. Councillor Johnson, please continue your debate.
This leaves me in a very difficult position, the one I've thought about in detail for months now. I have swung from one side to the other like a pendulum of a clock. I have contemplated the what-ifs and the what-nots. I have thought about the political fallout, the damaged relationship, the community perception and every other matter, and yet time and time again I am conflicted with the decision I need to make. I have been lobbied, I have been asked the questions, I have received comments such as I hope you don't do anything stupid. But one thing I know, and I know myself the best, is that no one will pressure me into making a decision. And I make my own mind up and I speak my mind, even when sometimes perhaps I shouldn't. So I'm going to now speak my mind.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
If the City of Swan, through the city staff, had have undertaken the discussions, meetings, etc., with the traditional owners and did exactly the same as I read in the reports to attain the Section 18, I would have been far from impressed. Words such as procedural fairness, a fair go, proper consultation have been raised with me, and I would agree with all of these. I admit that nearly all of us were not present at these meetings, so we don't know for sure what transpired. However, I heard and listened to some of the traditional owners that were, and I have read the reports. The state government is saying to us, if you don't agree to our design, then you're on your own. We won't take away the agreed funding, but we won't be covering the additional costs that I am being advised are tens of millions of dollars. Now, some may state they're simply stating the facts, but I see it's more of that, and this is a do it this way, I want you to do it, or we will make you pay.
Have you got much more, Councillor Bowman?
I'll ask for an extra 5 minutes, please.
I'll have to put that to the council. You're moving that way, Councillor Kiley. Is it a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Is there anyone against? I have 1, 2, 3 against. I'll allow you 5 extra minutes. Thank you, Councillor Bowman, but I'll draw a line at 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. The Minister has previously advised and followed up this in conversation that once the City of Swan agrees to the concept design and the construction has started or been completed, that she will be undertaking action for the state government to take responsibility of Lloyd Street. This to me suggests is of significant importance to the state. I'm always happy for state government to take over responsibilities for any local government roads. As a ratepayers of Swan, then do not have to pay for ongoing costs. I can name a whole bunch more City of Swan roads that the state government could take control of if they want. The first that comes to mind is Nangara Road. Councillors, if the state government sees no issue with how the Section 18 was attained, if the state government also wants the bridge, if the state government is okay with the current design, and if the state government wants this bridge to be built now under the current contract that are in place, then this to me makes this a very easy decision. And this is the City of Swan requests the state government take control of Lloyd Street. They then can themselves, without reference to the City of Swan, make the final decision on the bridge. They can then deal with any legal action that may come about from how the Section 18 was attained, and they can then be the final decision maker on the environmental costs. Some may say this is a cop-out, that this is our role as a council to make the decision, but only usually when it agrees with their views. Others might say this is having a bet each way, and for those that think this way, you are entitled to this. But what it says for me is, state government, I am not happy with the process to date. State government, I am concerned with the environmental impacts that the Helena River Alliance and others have raised. State government, I understand the importance of the bridge to state road network and the importance of it for our local businesses. State government, I have a financial responsibility to all ratepayers. If the state government takes control of this project, this will also allow for the Helena River Alliance, the traditional owners and anyone else being able to deal direct with main roads and the state, which is currently not allowed. As I'm aware, currently the city will meet with the Helena River Alliance, items are discussed, then the city passes the info or the concerns onto main roads, and then main roads, state government responds. They provide this to the city, and then the city would on-forward this to the Helena River Alliance. This is because it is currently our project. I don't like the concept design, but I cannot commit tens of millions of dollars of ratepayers' funds for a redesign. And as such, I cannot support any action that places significant financial risk to the city ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Then you'll have Councillor Kiley, no? You have 3 minutes of your right to reply. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor. I think I deserve 6 minutes, actually, if Councillor Bowman can write a 10-minute speech.
Well, that was agreed to by Councillor Johnson. So
okay. Look, Mr Mayor, I probably need to address some of the issues raised by Councillor Bowman. My motion does not talk about funding this bridge, not at all. So we are not committing our ratepayers to this in any way. So to make a statement like that is incorrect. The concept design is not going to cost tens of millions of dollars. That's an incorrect statement. What we're doing right now is exploring a low-cost concept design. So the cost of the concept design is relatively low cost, to enable us to examine what the cost of a elegant, beautiful, environmentally and culturally acceptable long-span bridge would be. That's what this is all about. The concept design will enable the engineers to provide an estimate, and at that very early concept stage of the project, and I often have to talk about stages in project, I understand we go through concept design, 15% design, 85% design, 100% design, and then construction, and then operation of the bridge. We will only know after we've completed this new concept design what the possible cost will be. And there's no doubt a longer, better quality bridge is going to cost more. But unless we have the concept design, the low cost, spend a small amount of money, relatively small amount of money on a concept design, we've no idea what the option is. Now, once we understand what the cost of this superior bridge is an acceptable bridge is likely to be, then we can go and ask for the extra money. We can go to the Commonwealth government. Who knows, the state government may have changed its mind. And the other point is this, councillors, we're not committing at this point, in this motion, to spending any more of our ratepayers' money. We're certainly not going to put the rates up by 5%, and that would not be the effect of this motion. A further decision in the future would have to be made by councils to where the money came from. But we have a moral responsibility and a responsibility of leadership to actually get this concept design right. Now, just imagine, councillors, the Commonwealth government says, no, we're not paying for it. The state government says, we're not paying for it. They've already committed the funds. We could just build the existing bridge if that's the future decision of council. So what this is about, councillors, is opening up a new opportunity.
You have 30 seconds left, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. A new opportunity through a new concept design to be constructed with the, to be designed with the traditional owners, the Helena River Alliance, the city staff and the council can be involved in this as well, no doubt they would be, and that would give us a design, something we could determine that everybody was happy with. Then we would estimate it, and then the process of government would move forward. Once again, we would come back to council with another motion, and we would say to ourselves, how do we fund this? So we might go to the Commonwealth government, we might go to the state government, or we might determine another course of action is necessary, possibly another concept design. But right now, with all the information we have from the traditional owners, and we've had a very comprehensive set of statements here, and we've heard from Senator Dorinda Cox tonight that they don't like it, we need to look at something new.
I have to ask you to wrap up. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
Can I have another 3 minutes then, Mr Mayor?
I'll put that to the council. Those I've got a mover for that. Councillor Catalano, seconded Councillor Bowman. Is there anyone against? Now you've got 3 more minutes and I'll stop then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's an important issue. Now, Councillor Congleton said there are no certainties that the state government will pay. The existing funds are assured. So the money's not going to disappear. The state government wants this bridge. What we're doing here...
What's your point of order? Thank you, Councillor.
I did not say that the state government wouldn't pay for the existing commitment. I said they may not pay for a new concept plan and design for a $20 million possibly.
Thank you. Thank you. If you can continue to debate.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think that's incorrect. We're not looking to spend $20 million on a concept design, Councillor, and I think we ought to have some training in project management. We're looking to spend a much smaller money on the concept design.
Point of order, if you can point me to the...
I don't need to have derogatory comments made to reference whether I need training or not.
I don't think the comment, or I didn't take it that the comment was directed at you.
Yes, it was.
If that was the case, Councillor Johnson, it was directed at Councillor Congleton. Could you please withdraw it?
Say this, Mr Mayor, I do actually train project management. That's why I said it.
Well,
and I've said it before.
Councillor Johnson...
Look, I'll apologise to Councillor Congleton if he feels upset
Thank
or
you.
offended, but it wasn't directed at him.
Thank you. Please continue.
In the early stages of designing a project, multiple concept designs may be looked at. It does not mean at that point that you're committing the whole $20, $30 million additional funding. You may be committing just $50,000 or $100,000 to get the alternative design. Then the different designs, the 3 designs that would result from this, the existing 2 designs plus the new concept design, will come back to Council for a decision. We're not spending $20 million here, Council. We're not putting up rates by 5%. We're just spending a relatively modest amount of money in a small time frame to have another look, to look at a new concept design that will build that elegant bridge that will retain the floodplain, retain the river, and be acceptable to the traditional owners and the Helena River Alliance. So that's what I'm asking you to vote for. In my view, councillors, this is probably the most important decision in my 6 years. So I'm calling on council tonight to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those councillors in favour, please raise your hand. I have Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight, Councillor Richardson. The motion is lost. Other than those 5... Oh, sorry. Councillor Prodovnik, did you support the motion? No. So there's 5 councillors, being Councillor Johnson, Howlett, Catalano, Knight and Richardson in support. The other 10 councillors were against. The motion is lost. Councillor Howlett, you're next on the sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So I have the next motion. I'll read that out. And this motion is that Council resolve to defer the current concept bridge design and halt all site clearing until such time that the City of Swan Lloyd Street Extension business case, including traffic modelling and reports, are made available to councillors to review, including all traffic reports produced by the state government agencies, including Metronet, Ainman Roads WA, and those produced or commissioned by the City of Swan for the roads listed below that interchange with the proposed Lloyd Street Bridge extension. I'll read those out. Clayton Street Sale Yards Precinct, the proposed closure of Robinson Road, the proposed closure of Helena Street, Sterling Crescent Hazelmere, the expected traffic reduction on Military Road, New Cale Street Level Crossing, which is a Metronet project, the expected traffic reduction on Guildford Roads, the closure of Sterling Crescent at the Great Eastern Highway Bypass Roe Highway Interchange, the closure of access to and from Morrison Road to Roe Highway, the proposed new Eric Lumsden Drive Hazelmere, and any proposed road widening of Lloyd Street at Great Eastern Highway connecting it north to Roe Highway. Record the reason for changing the officer's recommendations are: 1. Councillors must be certain that the design meets the project brief as defined in the business case and supporting traffic modelling and reports, and Council can only make an informed decision on the concept design after reviewing those. 2. Councillors have not yet been given the business case with supporting traffic modelling and reports to study. 3, the bridge will seemingly drive both commuter traffic and freight trucks directly into an already overcrowded Midland Road network. 4, the final bridge design will impact on current and future generations for decades to come.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against? There is. You wish to debate it? Councillor
Perry, please.
I know they're against, but they've said they don't wish to debate it. There's no one wish to debate it. I'll
debate it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Against the motion? Yes. Thank you. Councillor Howlett, you have 5 minutes. Thank you. Please start your debate.
Thank you, councillors. I'll keep this short. It's simply not possible for councillors to make an informed decision on the Lloyd Street Bridge concept design without first reading the business case and traffic modelling and then understanding the purpose of the bridge and the impacts it will have on future generations of users. Due diligence includes assessing all the information to make an informed decision. And having only received the Lloyd Street Extension Economic Analysis 2016 with the main roads and Greater Midland traffic modelling 24 hours ago, I will need time to review these documents. I have been reminded repeatedly Lloyd Street Bridge has been in the planning for 20 years, and I get that. But let's be honest, a lot of roads into and connecting Midland have changed significantly over those 20 years, and there is more to come with the proposed closures of both Robinson Road and Helena Street. I note that my motion states a list of interconnected roads, and I believe it is important to understand the interconnectivity of the proposed Lloyd Street Bridge and just where the traffic will flow to. And I also note that we have not been given the Jacobs traffic report despite Councillor Johnson having asked repeatedly for it. Much like the words spoken by Senator Dorinda Cox tonight on behalf of the traditional owners, and I quote, "The pylons have been hidden from our view," it seems these traffic reports have been hidden from our view. Councillors, we are not building this bridge for the past, we are building it for the future. And in order to ensure we have approved the correct design, we must fully understand the business case and traffic modelling. There is a reason why the rear vision mirror is small in a windscreen and the windscreen is large. It's because we're supposed to look forward and not into the past. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson is the seconder.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I think it was late on Tuesday we all of a sudden received a package of information, including an economic analysis of the Lloyd Street Bridge and 2 traffic reports. The economic analysis I found relatively straightforward to understand, but the traffic reports were extremely complex and they raised quite a few questions for me. I was a bit puzzled why the traffic report that I looked at showed an expected increase of vehicles in the vicinity of the bridge as far as between Great Eastern Highway Bypass and Clayton Street of around 700 to 900 vehicles per day. And I think those are commercial vehicles. Yet on the surrounding streets, such as either side of Clayton Street and further north up Lloyd Street, there was very little change, just either no change or around about 100 commercial vehicles a day. And I think that needs to be explained. And for that reason, I think we need to defer it. We got some new information very late on Tuesday that is very important to this decision. And without that information being fully explained by the staff or time to absorb it and for us to ask questions, I think the proper thing to do is to defer. When I looked at the traffic reports that I was given, which I think were from 2016, there was no mention of the closure of Robinson Road. There was no mention of the proposed closure of Helena Street. There was no mention of the new Cale Street level crossing. There was certainly no mention of Eric Lumsden Drive in Hazelmere, and possibly some of these other changes listed in the motion were not in there. So we need time to understand that information. So, councillors, For the reason of late delivery of the traffic model and the fact that we still don't have that Jacobs report that we've been waiting for 5 months, I'd say we should defer it. And I would also question whether councillors who are concerned about the finances, and we heard earlier that Councillor Bowman was concerned about where the money was coming from. Those documents that were delivered to us late on Tuesday, one of them contains a fairly comprehensive financial explanation of the benefits of it. I think councillors need time to read that and understand it, and then they wouldn't be so concerned about the additional cost, because they know they could go and ask for the cost because there's a very good justification for it. So councillors, we don't want our ratepayers to be paying the additional cost, but we're confident that either the Commonwealth Government or the state government will pay for it once they see the environmental analysis and the cost-benefit analysis. So, councillors, the proper thing to do at this point will be to, if you don't support my motion, which you've not done, which is very sad, I think it's a very sad day, we need to defer the officer's recommendation in order to be fully informed as to what we need to do next. So, please support this motion.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Kiley, thank you.
This is an exceptionally difficult topic to discuss, and if Council will recall, on previous occasions I have got up and said and raised the Duke and Gorge issue and said this is our Duke and Gorge issue, and it still is in my view, and all of the concerns that Councillor Bowman raised in regard to the trees, the environment, the clearing of land down there all resonate with me, and I'm still greatly concerned about it. I have changed my approach, and I'll have an alternative motion up here tonight, and that is to hand the whole thing over to the Minister. And the reason being, it may seem counterintuitive that we would do that, but the reason being is that I believe the Minister wants us to make this decision. She wants us to make the decision to make the first step of saying we approve this design. It may only be a design, and then she'll take over everything else. But forevermore, she could say, it was not me who approved the design, it was the City of Swan. The blame will be laid squarely with this room, with these councillors, with myself and the makeup of council. All Councillor Johnson's motion does, and all Councillor Howlett's motion do, is delay the project. And that is not acceptable to the state government. They've made that quite clear. The Minister for Transport has written to us and will not accept the delay. That's been made clear, and if Mayor Lucas wants to reiterate that, as he sent out, a delay will not be accepted. It will be taken over from us as a council. We cannot afford delaying this issue any further. It'll be taken over. The contractors are ready to go. They don't talk about the design phase anymore when they talk about the Great Eastern Highway bypass. They talk about, we've gone from design, now we're going to go to construction. We're in that phase. They are not going to wait another few years, another 6 months until they have a look at further designs and wait for us as a council to come up with a design. I want to remind council that we are not allowed to make decisions on a development application over $2 million. That responsibility has been taken away from us as a council, and the community aren't really aware of that. Any decision over $2 million has been taken over by the state. The state make that decision through any JDAP process. This project will end up costing us $60 million. So the question we have to ask ourselves is why is the Minister wanting us to make a decision on a $60 million project when she takes over every other decision above $2 million? Even on decisions under $2 million, the applicant has the right to go to SAT and appeal it to and have it heard by an unelected member who doesn't reside in the area. So we have very little power in this respect, but I believe that we should hand full responsibility over to the Minister, and with that put all the onus on her to ensure that it is done correctly, that it is done in accordance with the findings of the Duke and Gorge inquiry. They have 8 recommendations, and that's what I'll be proposing, that we hand it over and specify that the Minister completes the work, as you'll see in my motion when it comes up later, hopefully we'll get to that, complete the work in accordance with the the aims, the objectives, the intent of the 8 recommendations of the Juukan Gorge inquiry. Now that will elevate that will elevate the debate. It will go from being an issue contained to this local council, and it's been fantastic to see the people protesting on the street tonight. But if we
You have 1 minute left, thank you, Councillor Kiley.
If we elevate this the situation and the decision from the concept, the further design and the construction to the minister, it gets elevated. It gets elevated to the point where it is probably equal to the Rio Tinto decision. It will bring in further more groups from the whole state, possibly federally, to be involved in making sure the minister adheres to the Juukan Gorge inquiry recommendations, because this is our Juukan Gorge issue. But if we go ahead and delay, she will take it over from us and blame us as the cause for the delay. If we go ahead tonight and actually approve a concept design, she will say forevermore, it wasn't me that actually made the decision, it was the City of Swan. All we're doing is progressing the development. I suggest you wait until my motion comes up, hopefully we'll get it, but it is to hand over the design, further design and construction to the minister, holus bolus. Give it to them. Give it to the state government. Because as Councillor Bowman pointed out, he hinted at a bit of red and blue, but the fact of the matter is we've been squeezed. We've been squeezed as a council. We have not been given the funding from state and federal representatives to complete a design that would satisfy everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Kiley. That's
30
your 5
seconds
minutes.
more, Mayor, if you wouldn't mind.
Is there any objection to that? You have 1 minute.
I was on a roll there, so thank you. We are being squeezed. The state and federal representatives can come forward with more money, another $20 million, to get the bridge we want. And I believe every councillor sitting here tonight wants a better outcome for the community. But as Councillor Bowman pointed out, we can't make a decision. We can't commit $20 million of ratepayer funds to fix something that effectively the state government and the federal government should have fixed in the first place. They know it's costing money. We're coming up to a federal election. We've got a federal member in Hasluck that could put the money into this. We've got a state government that wants us to take the responsibility for the bridge, but won't commit the further funding. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but please pass the whole thing off to the minister.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Councillor Catalano.
Thank you. Yes, it does sound counterintuitive, actually, because guess what happens when the minister gets hold of it? We're going to end up with it filled in. And then we can say, oh, well, it wasn't our fault. We passed it over to the minister and the minister's made the decision. So we're back at square one, which is a floodplain full of soil and, the loss of all the environmental and cultural qualities that we've been talking about for months now. So, it sounds great. We'll just palm the decision off to the state government and, like some kind of miracle, the state government is going to suddenly take on board all of these interests and make that decision according to the Juukan Gorge, which, actually it's not going to get that kind of publicity or even interest. And actually, you know what? It's been our project. It is our project. It's been our project from the very beginning. And why should the state government, and why will the state government, in fact, you're dreaming if you think that they might, do anything other than what's currently proposed by Main Roads? So, you can dream on, but the fact is, more than likely, they're far more removed from this community of people here who've been asking for better environmental and cultural qualities. They're far removed from there. It's far easier for them to make a decision that goes, hey, guess what? We're going to take a cheap option. We're going to fill it full of dirt. And in fact, do you know what? We might even use that contaminated soil in there. We'll put it in the middle, we'll encase it, and nobody will be the wiser because we're the state government and that's what we can do. So, it sounds great. It sounds like a nice idea to palm it off to the state government. But it's our bridge. It's always been our bridge. We should take responsibility for it, and we're taking responsibility tonight by deciding whether we're going to go ahead with this bridge or not. I mean, this particular concept plan or not, or whether we're going to defer it and then come back and think about it again. Because obviously it's an incredibly important decision, as we've all heard tonight, and that means that we've got to actually particularly get to grips with the traffic. We've got to get to grips with all the other aspects of it, because it's our bridge. It's always been our bridge, it's always been our design, it's always been our project, and I don't think the state government is going to necessarily solve the issues in the way that our community has asked us to do it.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. Speaker for the against the motion. Any other speakers for or against? Then before you write a reply, Councillor Howlett, I forgot to actually debate the last item, so I'm going to enter the debate now, and I'll hand the chair over to Councillor Congdon. So, councillors, we've got a very important decision. I agree with Councillor Johnston. Perhaps it's one of the most important decisions I've made of my 30 years on this council. It's about a traffic solution to problems in Midland. I don't think we need to have any more studies. You just drive down Clayton Street or Military Road any time of the day and there's congestion. It is going to become worse when Helena Street and Robinson's Road are closed down by the state government. I read a very good email from Mr Troy, a former Transport Minister, stating the importance of the Lloyd Street Bridge, not only to the City of Swan but to the City of Kalamunda, the City of Belmont and the Shire of Mundaring, and the 16,000+ workers in the Hazelmere industrial area. The traditional owners have always stated their preference is for no bridge. I understand that, I get it. But in my view, councillors, you have two options tonight. Only two. You approve the concept design and hand the bridge project back to the state government, or you have no bridge at all. I had a very frank and open discussion the other day with the Minister last Friday in Allenbrook. Also present were Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman and Councillor Richardson, and she was asked a number of questions. Minister Saffioti was very clear in her response. If the City of Swan does not endorse the concept plan, she will hand the project back to the City of Swan. I don't know why you're shaking your head, Councillor Richards. Well, I'm sorry, you may not have been there at that particular time.
Excuse me, no cross debate, thank you.
It was clearly said, and it's followed up in an email which I circulated to all councillors, I think on Monday from memory. There's been that many emails flying around. But let me make it perfectly clear, councillors, the City of Swan cannot afford a delay on this project. It is currently in the Greater Connect Alliance contract. They are ready to start on the concept plan, and we cannot afford to let this opportunity go. I thank the Helena River Alliance for their input to date. They have reduced the footprint of the current or the original bridge design by almost 4,000 square metres. They have saved dozens of trees. Their input has also seen the inclusion of a culvert under the sand so the two swamps or the pools can stay connected with water. They have done a great job representing the environment. But the decision we have to make tonight, councillors, and I'll be very clear, and Councillor Catalano said, well, you can dream on if you want. Well, we can dream on. As I said, if we do not accept the concept design tonight and request the state government to take the bridge project back over, there will be no bridge. You've all read the previous reports in December that there's tens of millions of additional costing. The $40 million won't disappear. Both the Minister and Minister Wyatt have said that, but $40 million will not build you a bridge. The only other avenue is to get it from our ratepayers, and that's what Councillor Bowman was alluding to. If it's estimated to be $20 to $30 million, that's a 20 to 30% rate increase. I have to use this for a second. You're talking about this is a decision of the state. Can I please remind you of our December resolution of this council, resolved 13 to 1, and I was the one who didn't support it. Take all necessary steps to stop the clearing of trees and vegetation and infilling on the Helena River floodplain for the Lloyd Street Bridge until the concept bridge design has been endorsed by council. So it was a decision of this council to endorse a concept design. So we shouldn't be handing the concept design back to the state. We need to approve it tonight, in my view. Thank you. And to include the Helena River Alliance and traditional owners in progressing. I've received an email sometime this afternoon from Councillor Prodovnik, who is proposing another alternative motion, which I much prefer over the two I've seen tonight. But make no mistake, councillors, Councillor Johnson spoke about the net present value of the bridge and what a easy decision. The bridge is needed. You've seen the traffic reports that have come out. You don't have to have them in detail. You just have to drive through the area to know that a further connection north-south is needed. So the choice is clear from me, councillors. We either accept the design concept tonight and request the state government to hand it back. And why wouldn't they accept it? Because it's a main roads designed anyhow. It's not a City of Swan design. The Minister was very clear. Accept the concept design, hand the project back to her, and she will deliver it, and at no further expense to the ratepayers of the City of Swan. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Congdon. Now, Councillor Howard, you have your right of reply. You have 3 minutes, unless Council determines otherwise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So up until 6 p.m. last night, I had never been presented with a business case for the Lloyd Street Bridge in any form, and certainly not one that comprehensively detailed the information I just mentioned in my motion. I've never seen any traffic modelling or supportive data, despite it being a decision of Council in October 21 to request the Jacobs traffic report from State Government. So I've been left to patch together snippets of media and vox pop statements to try and understand the concept and create my own understanding, my own business case, including statements like, we've been planning this bridge for decades, over 20 years. It will save 12 minutes for commuters currently detouring around the river. It is expected to reduce traffic volumes through Guildford by 15 to 20%. It forms a crucial part of our plan to improve traffic flow in Hazelmere. Freight traffic impacts on nearby residential developments in Guildford and Hazelmere will be reduced. Without access to evidentiary traffic modelling and reports, how can I, or any other councillor, qualify or understand those statements in respect to the design that the bridge requires? The city states that traffic management is a key part of the city's planning strategy. So where are the supporting traffic studies for the bridge, and why haven't I seen any? If the Lloyd Street Bridge has been decades in the planning, then there should be binders of reports and traffic modelling and information substantiating the need and the benefit it will provide. But where are they? I hold a very privileged position as a local councillor and elected representative, and it is my role to carefully consider all the information provided to me and make my decision based on the best outcome for both current and future generations. It is not my role to make a decision based on plans thought up decades ago with no supporting data provided to me. Without the traffic modelling, I simply cannot decide on the Lloyd Street Bridge or its design based on the absence of any supportive evidence.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
A business plan around traffic modelling or reports being provided to me. The city went as far as using world-first technology through smart stickers that were sent to all households in March 2019. The stickers were read by scanners that could identify the smart sticker at congestion hotspots, which triggered an email to be automatically sent to local MPs and election candidates, reminding them of the traffic issues. A total of 34,000 emails were sent to politicians in just 3 weeks. Surely, if we're prepared to put this much technology behind lobbying for funds to build the bridge, then you think that supplying supportive documents for a business case would be simple. On the Australian Government Department of Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, under project description, it states there is currently limited freight access to the industrial areas of Hazelmere.
Have you got long to go, Councillor Howlett?
No, I haven't. And Midlands.
Then please continue.
Thank you. And that this has resulted in increased congestion on the roads surrounding these precincts and nearby residents. The project will extend Lloyd Street to directly link Midland and the St John of God Hospital with areas of Hazelmere, Forestfield and the airport. The project is said to improve freight efficiency and travel time, but I just need to see this. I want to see the modelling, and I'd like to see the business case, which landed in my inbox at 6 o'clock last night, and I just need time to go through that so I can ensure that we are creating the correct concept design. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll put Councillor Howlett's motion. Those in favour, please. Of Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson and Councillor Bowman. The motion is lost. Yes, she hasn't put her hand up. 6-9. So 4 were Councillor Howlett, Johnson, Catalano, Knight, Richardson and Bowman. Everyone else was against. Councillor Prodovnik, I hope you can hear me. I did see an email this afternoon. As the 3rd Ward member, would you like to have the opportunity of moving your motion now?
Shouldn't we have a 10-minute break?
Yes, but can you hear me? It's not coming through clearly because the line's pretty bad.
Yeah, we can hear you, but it is just after 8 o'clock, so we're going to break for our 10-minute break, and I'll refer to you when we come back. Thank you.
10 minutes?
Thank you. Back in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone. We'll now reconvene the meeting, and Councillor Brodovnik, you have a motion. Thank you.
Okay, the motion is that the Council resolve to 1. Endorse the current concept design for the Lloyd Street Bridge with the following conditions. A. Ensure the rock shelter with the site boundary is carefully protected during the construction and development of the bridge. B. Ensure clean, uncontaminated soil is used in the construction. C. Ensure the Helena River Alliance and traditional owners remain involved in ongoing discussions as the bridge progresses to its final design. D. Ensure input is sought from the Woodjup Native Title Group to shape the form and content of the project's cultural heritage management plan, including procedures and mechanisms for recording and treatment preservation of artefacts and stories. E. Investigate where Aboriginal artwork and heritage interpretation can be incorporated in the project design. And 2. The City to write to the Minister for Transport to confirm the state government's intention to commence the necessary process to make Lloyd Street a state road. Reasons: this motion protects the areas of significance, in particular the rock shelter. It includes the traditional owners in the ongoing process, ensures there is clean fill, and ensures that there is no further cost to the City of Swan ratepayers for this substantial piece of infrastructure.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? You wish to debate it? Yes. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes to open your debate. Thank you, Councillor Prodovnik.
Okay, this bridge needs to proceed, and tonight there is a real danger we'll lose funding and never reach agreement on the right design. Over the past 20 years, this bridge has received bipartisan support from both state and federal governments. Currently, this bridge is co-funded by a Liberal federal government and a Labor state government. Over the past 20 years, people have invested heavily in the area due to future planning, and this is a key link road to get passage for trucks and ease congestion. It will alleviate key congestion spots, including Military Road and Clayton Street. There are many businesses that have committed to the area in Hazelmere, and they'll rely on this bridge. It will also help divert traffic from going through Guildford. Just so that we are very clear, we've all seen the email from the Transport Minister's Department making it very clear if we don't endorse the plan Main Roads has been working on with key stakeholders, we'll have to build the bridge ourselves. It will be removed from the overall Great Eastern Highway Bypass Interchange project, and that will create a funding shortfall of almost $34 million for the ratepayers to pick up. The idea we can just find the money and look to our ratepayers to fund it is an attitude a previous council had towards the Midland Oval. They took the same approach, a multi-million-dollar project largely funded by ratepayers. That strategy was roundly criticised by ratepayer groups in the City of Swan as financially irresponsible and a poor strategy. So to apply the same strategy and the same attitude to the Lloyd Street Bridge to say ratepayers can fund the $34 million extra it will cost is also financially irresponsible, particularly when we have people struggling to pay their rates. And let's not underestimate the impact of COVID on families and businesses and our ratepayers in the City of Swan. Now is not the time to slug our ratepayers with more rate increases to fund a bridge the state government is happy to pay for. How is that a good outcome for our ratepayers, our business community, and those who have invested in this area? My motion that I'm proposing tonight endorses the concept plan, which is still a work in progress and has more stages to complete. This is just concept. It's a concept design of an important project and it's to be built. Please support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Parry is the seconder.
Amendment, Mayor, or we hear from the seconder first?
I'll hear from the seconder first, and I'll take your amendment.
I'll be very quick then, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Berdovnik's position, in particular point C and point D, to ensure that the Polina River Alliance and traditional owners remain involved in the ongoing discussions, and also the Whadjuk Noongar title group also to be involved. I think that's quite important because of the fact that they will still be involved in the 15%, the 85% and the 100% design of the bridge as well. This project's very important as well from a sovereign risk perspective as well, because of the fact that this was our number one, or certainly one of the top 2 or 3 priorities in our advocacy list last year as well. We also have a federal election coming up, which Mr White is in a very competitive race against the Labor candidate as well, and we need to ensure that that we do proceed with these advocacy projects that we need to do, and we keep our promise as well to the people that we need to serve as well. So, and also the fact that we cannot burden the ratepayers up to $25 million, as discussed last week by Mr Coden as well. I think it's extremely unfair that ratepayers have to suffer this burden because of the decision as well. We have other priorities as well that need to be looked at, such as the Ellenbrook Pool and everything else like that. This is also the unfortunate circumstance as well, in my opinion, of a dominated Labor government as well, and the fact that if you look at Midland, if you look at Belmont, if you look at those seats, they're not very competitive for the other side of the fence. And of course, last election was a bit of a whitewash as well, so we received no extra funding as well when we probably should have. So at the end of the day, I think Councillor Berdovnik's motion is fair and reasonable, and that's why I'm supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Johnson. What's your amendment? Thank you, Councillor Kiley.
Thank you. Staff got that. It's point 2 that or the amendment that I sent in earlier today. Megan, if you wouldn't mind, that the Minister, if I can read it out and have you put it up on the board as you've got it, that the Minister is to ensure the bridge be designed and constructed with respect to, with due regard to, and in accordance with the intent and objectives, where applicable, to the 8 recommendations. With the 8 recommendations provided in a way forward final report into the destruction of Indigenous heritage sites in Juukan Gorge, October 2021. And the reason is to ensure the concerns around destruction of a locally recognised culturally significant site, as repeatedly raised with this council, are dealt with appropriately by the Minister.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
As the seconder?
Yes, I'm happy with that too, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Just a question.
Question, Councillor
If it's
Johnson.
our project, how does the Minister ensure the bridge is designed and constructed with respect to GRIG?
Because the motion hands it over to her.
The motion hands it over, but perhaps if I could ask that you perhaps change the word from ensure to request, because we can't direct the Minister.
Request, I'm happy with that, Mayor.
Request the Minister. I can only deal with one amendment at a time, Councillor, and I just want to make sure it gets it right on the board. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the... remove the word ensure and request the Minister that the bridge. Yeah, just hang on a second, I just want to make sure the motion is correct.
Mr Mayor, can we really define that as well as the Lloyd Street Bridge, please, as well?
Well, it's in the motion for the Lloyd Street Bridge, so I think that's his take.
Just before the intent, there's the word "the" missing. Second line.
With the intent?
Yes, thank you. It doesn't sound right, does it? Request of the Minister. Request of the...
It should be recommend to the Minister that.
Happy with that as well?
It's probably better worded, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, I just want to try and get it right. It's hard when we do it on the run. So, as it stands now, that's acceptable to both the mover, Councillor Podovnik, and Councillor Parry as the seconder. That'll become part of the substantive motion. Councillor Catalano, you have a question?
I don't understand how you can ensure the bridge be designed and constructed with respect to, with due regard to the intent and objectives of, you know, the Indigenous heritage thing at Yukon Gorge and all of that. You know, basically what you're saying is that, you know, the design and construction be in accordance with what traditional owners and the informants to the site want, when actually the concept plan is actually contrary to what they want. So I don't understand how that can actually be anything other than contrary to the actual motion.
Thank you. I think the wrong amendment was still on the board when you were reading it. If we can have it transposed. So it's a recommendation to the Minister that the bridge be designed and constructed with respect to due regard to and in accordance with the intent and objections where applicable to the 8 recommendations provided in the way forward.
My question hasn't been answered because, you see, if you're going to...
Sorry, Councillor Catalano, when you first asked the question, the incorrect amendment was still on the board where it said ensure.
Yeah, but the point is, it's not about the word ensure. It's
Mayor,
a point.
are we in debate or not?
No, it's a question. I'm asking
which
a
I'm happy
question,
to
if you
answer.
don't mind. Thank you very much. What I'm asking is, if you're recommending for this to be done in accordance with what the traditional owners want, which is effectively what happened at Yukon Gorge was the opposite of what they wanted, right? That this concept plan, how can this concept plan? It's counter to the
contrary.
Yes, contrary to the concept plan to infill the Helena floodplain. We've heard.
It's up to the Minister, not up to us.
No, it's up to us because we're putting that in there.
Well, it's a recommendation, Councillor Catalano. It's been
Yeah, but
accepted.
how can we recommend that when we're actually endorsing the current concept plan, which is contrary to what...
Well,
that's the question I'm asking.
You can argue against it in debate, but it's been accepted by the mover and the seconder. I'll now call for speakers against them. Ask for speakers against the motion. You want to enter debate, Councillor
I've got a
Johnson?
question. So what are these 8 recommendations?
They're provided to staff, so if you want to...
They were provided in an email. Well, I certainly got one this afternoon. I assume everyone received the email this afternoon.
I'm sure
But
I
I
received
think
it.
that the public might like to know as well.
So what are these 8?
Yeah, I think we need to have them written
public
up
aren't-
there.
With respect, Councillor Catalano, the public aren't making the decision, the councillors are. So I'm going to ask, are there any speakers against the motion as amended?
Mr Mayor, can we have some reading time so we can read this? Because I was at work this afternoon, and if that was sent out this afternoon, I've not had time to read it. And it may be contrary, because what Councillor Castellano is saying is right. It's got to be contrary to the principle.
I've got no issue with allowing you reading time, Councillor, but, you know...
We suspend standing orders and allow 10 minutes reading time now.
I will adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes for the paperwork to be printed off. I'm hoping that the emails, if you've got your iPad, if you can refer to it, was sent this afternoon by Councillor Kiley. So
councillors can refer to their emails, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
We'll also try and print some copies off, but the printer will take some time. Yeah, we'll try and get
well,
some
we're trying to get that done for you, Councillor Catalano and the other councillors. And it was sent this afternoon, and I'll just tell you when. Thank you, councillors. The 10-minute reading time is now expired, and I'll reconvene the meeting. Okay, we currently have a motion with an amendment, and we're up to the point where I need a councillor speaking against the motion. Councillor Johnson, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
So just to confirm, Mr Mayor, we're talking against a substantive motion. The amendment has already been
the amendment is part of the substantive motion, so you can speak.
Okay, Mr Mayor. Look,
sorry, who's... Rochelle, are you there? Councillor Prodovnik?
Sorry, yes, I'm here. I muted myself.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, your 5 minutes will start once you start speaking.
So, Mr Mayor, my primary problem with this is it says right at the top, endorse the current concept design for the Lloyd Street Bridge.
Well, that's why you're arguing against it.
Exactly. That is the problem. Councillors, we have heard categorically from the traditional owners and from the Helena River Alliance and from many, many people, and I get text messages coming all the way through this saying they can't understand why councillors didn't vote for my motion. Councillors, it is a completely unacceptable design. It is. We have heard categorically why it is wrong. It will irrevocably damage the river. It will damage the floodplain. It is a poor quality bridge. It may give us the road network that we need, but it's the wrong thing to do to fill that in right now. And the second issue with this motion, it is completely inconsistent. So section 3, this bit about the 8 recommendations, is inconsistent with number 1. So if we take a look at it, it talks about the Australian government ratify the Convention for the Safeguarding of Intangible Cultural Heritage. Well, I don't really see what that's got to do with this, but if we are safeguarding intangible cultural heritage, why would we put this bridge so near to that rock shelter? But when we get on to the traditional owners, it says decision-making processes that ensure traditional owners and native title holders have primary decision-making power in relation to their cultural heritage. Well, they've expressed themselves extremely clearly through the email that I keep referring to, which is, of course, says confidential at the top, but I'm sure councillors, if you've read it, they're making it clear that they don't like this bridge. Some traditional owners don't like any bridge, they don't like where it is, or they think it's the wrong bridge. So that's the message that's coming across quite strongly. So item 3, as Councillor Carley said, it's counterintuitive. It is counterintuitive. I'll just explain, councillors. That's French for it doesn't make any sense.
Point of order, Mayor.
What's your point of order, Councillor?
I never said that point that was amended into the motion was counterintuitive. I said my motion, my whole motion which would follow if this one failed, it would be counterintuitive. I never said this point that's being accepted into
Thank you, I accept that.
Thank you.
You have a point of order, Councillor Johnson.
Okay.
You can
I'll say myself then. It is it's definitely counterintuitive. It makes no sense at all. So, councillors, to suggest that we endorse the concept design, but at the same time say that the decision-making process should ensure that traditional owners and native title holders have primary decision-making power in relation to their cultural heritage is clearly not what we're doing here. So the motion is just doesn't fit together. A requirement that site surveys involving traditional owners are conducted on country at the beginning of any decision-making process. That did not happen. We're far too late in the process. We've already got the concept design. The traditional owners were not involved before the bridge was designed. So it also says mechanisms for traditional owners to review or appeal decisions. Well, that would be nice, but how is that actually going to happen? So is this document that we have here going to be sent to the Minister and she'll say, oh, crikey, I've made a mistake. Councillor Johnson's plan for a new concept design was exactly the right thing to do. I should go back and do that.
So it's a bit sad that we rejected that new concept design, because that's exactly what's needed. That's exactly what the traditional owners want. And that's what Section 3 and these 8 things would say. They would say, we, as the traditional owners, and I can't represent them, they want a new concept design. That's what they wanted. So it's no use greenwashing this in this way by putting in all these wonderful things and saying, oh, we support the rights of the traditional owners, if you voted against the traditional owners tonight, which is what you've been doing. So it's completely and totally wrong.
You have 1 minute
left.
left,
It's worse than counterintuitive. It's absolutely bonkers. I'm sorry, Mr. Rowe, apologies for saying that. But it's counterintuitive, it's wrong, it makes no sense. So, councillors, we had a really good motion. We could have come up with a new concept design, but instead now we've got this one that endorses the bridge that nobody wants and pretends to support the traditional owners when clearly we're endorsing the current concept design. So I'm sorry, councillors, I just can't support this. It's completely wrong. Vote against it.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. Any other speakers for or against the motion? Councillor Catalano.
Actually, I've got to say, I'm absolutely embarrassed to be a councillor on this council right now. I really am. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
If I could ask the people in the gallery, the councillors have asked me twice that they can't hear the debate because of the noise emanating from the gallery. So I'll ask you once again, please don't applaud, talk very loudly so we can concentrate on the matters before council. Thank you.
I'm embarrassed because we've even got this motion that contradicts itself within itself. I mean, not only is it the wrong motion, not only is it the wrong thing to do environmentally and culturally. You know, money is one thing, but the environment, you'll never ever get it back. You'll never get it back. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at it. It doesn't matter how many cars go on this bridge. It doesn't matter how many, packets of widgets somebody sells on the other side of that bridge. You are never, ever, ever going to have enough money to bring back those environmental qualities. And you will never, ever, ever bring them back. And your children and your children's children are going to pay for it. In fact, I may even pay for it, because in 20 years' time, it's going to be even worse thanks to this kind of motion. And then to think that somehow you can just tack a little bit on the end and it's going to be all right, that minister could never, ever consider point 3 when we have actually tonight, if this motion goes through, gone with the current concept plan, which is contrary to what we've heard all the traditional owners tell us they want. So it's just, it is bonkers. I'm embarrassed to be on council. I'm embarrassed to even have to stand up and say this, and actually to have to wear this kind of motion if it goes through. And, you know, the whole thing about the Helena River floodplain, it's not a rock shelter that's actually the cultural value. It's the whole of the floodplain. It's the whole of the floodplain. And you know why? Because without those floodplains and those waterways, we're lost. We are lost in Australia because, I don't know, you probably all heard of the Woggle, because, hey, we are in the Woggles country, and I can't say too much about it, but I know that that is the river. And everybody knows that already. So, you know, it's just, phew, what's going on? If this goes ahead, if that floodplain gets filled in, a lot of things are going to happen that aren't going to be good. But anyway, that's not for me to say. Then, you know, the other thing gets me. Ensure the Helena River Alliance and traditional owners remain involved. Like, why would you even want to remain involved when you've just got something you don't want? I mean, talk about a slap in the face. I mean, why would anybody want to carry on doing something they don't agree with?
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
And the same goes, oh, well, you know, artwork and heritage. Oh, actually, it's not greenwashing, Councillor. It's actually blackwashing. Yeah. And you know what? You did the rap tonight. I wasn't particularly happy with it because the bit that was missing in the rap was the fact that we don't listen. There's no truth-telling in it. And I think this whole thing here is just a classic example of where we've gone wrong with the RAP and where we're going wrong with our whole reconciliation process on this council. And I'm going to say that embarrasses me as well.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion. No, the amendment is part of the substantive motion because it was accepted by the mover and the seconder. So I'm speaking if there's any other speakers for or against the motion. Councillor McCulloch, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Yes, councillors, this is a contentious issue. It's a sensitive issue. It's an issue that takes into account financial implications, social implications, Indigenous heritage and preservation implications. I think that we've seen that there are fragilities surrounding each and every one of those aspects, but there's also information that may have been missed. As we've heard, there's information that has been misinterpreted. But if we're looking in the long term, and we've heard of our financial implications, we've heard of the concept design and that we need a new concept design. The initial design from the city wasn't the best design. Main roads came back. And this bridge has now been redesigned to minimise environmental impacts and to respect the views of the traditional landowners. Engineers don't just guess water flows for designing bridges. And this bridge has been designed to incorporate those flows, determined by design criteria, which is probably based on a 1 to 100 year flood. These aspects are incorporated to look at preserving the Helena River floodplain and to make the best use and to protect all of those aspects that are so important so that we can have a bridge, we can have a practical design of a bridge that our traditional owners have been consulted on, and we can move forward. Councillors, I'd like to refer to just a couple of things and address two aspects here tonight. One of them would be consultation with traditional owners and the other one to do with our environmental issues. And they're two things that are very close and passionate, something I'm very passionate about and are close to my heart. Main Roads, their clearing assessment report is very detailed. It's a 48-page document. Purpose and scope. It looks at alternatives to clearing, measurements, approved policies, the planning instruments. There are many planning instruments that have been taken into account to address concerns and issues. Summaries of biological surveys, dieback surveys, project site vegetation description, vegetation complexes and representation. They've looked at issues surrounding black cockatoos, quenders, turtles, many of our native animals. They've looked at the clearing, they've looked at degradation of the site, they've looked at minimising tree removal. I'm not going to go on, but that's a really good and interesting read, and I hope you've probably had a look at that to look and refer to as you make your decision. The last thing I'd like to say, in regards to the traditional owner engagement, and I do believe there's been some misinformation surrounding this. Pre-Section 18, the composition of the Whadjuk Noongar Tidal Group was determined by the South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council as per Clause 18. As previously acknowledged, the crossing of the Helena River was not supported by the traditional owners. However, the scope of the consultation went on to look at sections of the Lloyd Street Bridge that had already been constructed. Okay, so Main Roads did adopt a continuous 57-metre single steel span bridge to remove those piers and maximise the span, improving the setback from the river.
You have 1 minute left.
Pre-Section 18, lots of aspects were taken into account. Consultation surveys were undertaken and facilitated by one of the most experienced and respected Aboriginal heritage consultants in his field. Some of the accusations surrounding this consultation are a little disappointing.
Point of order, Mr.
One
Mayor.
of
What's
the
your
key-
point of order, Councillor Johnson?
What we've heard a bit about accusations of misinformation, but it's never been explained what the accusations are, and it's a bit derogatory and inappropriate. It's detrimental.
Throughout the evening in debate, and specifically in this debate, there have been comments made that the traditional owners were disrespected, they weren't given a fair go. So I think it's only proper that Councillor McCulloch can use her debate time to counter that argument. She hasn't mentioned the name of the consultant, but she's saying that from my point of view, she's saying that the consultation was done in a respectful manner.
She's supporting the traditional owners then in her speech, is your interpretation?
No, she's saying that there's a lot of accusations that, and particularly via email, that they were treated poorly, and she's saying that they were not, and I accept that you have no point of order. If you can please continue. Councillor McCulloch, you have 45 seconds left.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I would appreciate if the public gallery were quiet. I'm having just constant...
I've asked them on this is the fourth or fifth occasion. Can you please be quiet? Otherwise, I'll ask you to leave the chamber. Thank you.
I have done some of my own research into consultations and how these progress, and there is limited information because one of the key reasons why Aboriginal heritage surveys are supposedly confidential is to prevent lobbying and pressure being placed on the traditional owners by outside parties, and that's what some of my research has uncovered. Post Section 18, additional engagement of the Whadjuk Native Title Group has been managed by the Greater Connect Alliance. The meetings and the consultations have seen what we have here with our bridge concept today. Agreeing areas above and beyond those legislative requirements are monitored by Aboriginal heritage monitors.
Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. That's your 5 minutes. Have you got long to go?
Not too long, thank you, Mr Mayor.
I'm looking for, what, an additional 2 minutes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone against that? Then please continue.
So these heritage monitorings and the discussions around GCA's heritage and procurement strategies and the need for family groups to nominate representatives to be involved in heritage monitorings are essential. Project updates detail some fairly specific things as well. So we can see that consultation has been consistent and it has occurred. Now, discussions around the incorporation of those Aboriginal artworks into the project with a focus on using Aboriginal artists and a preference for elder stories to inform is exciting, looking at the bridge and moving forward. Sorry, Mr Mayor. A lot of our traditional owners now are focused on the opportunities that the project has to share through their stories and their interpretations. And the GCO is going to continue to work with the traditional owners throughout the life of the project. So, councillors, there are many environmental aspects and they have been addressed concisely and consistently. Our traditional owners have been consulted and they will continue to be consulted right through to the end.
What's your point of order? Thank you, Councillor.
Actually, traditional owners aren't ours. They are their own. And they aren't owned by us. They're not ours. They're the traditional owners.
I think you've misinterpreted what Councillor McCulloch said.
It is a good point. They aren't our traditional owners.
You have no point of order. If you can please continue, Councillor McCulloch. You have 1 minute and 10 seconds left.
Mr Mayor, I just respectfully disagree with your ruling there. They are not our owners. I'd like to move a motion of dissent from that ruling. It's incorrect.
Okay. You seconded Councillor Catalano. I'll now put the motion of dissent against my ruling that there was no point of order. Those councillors in favour of Councillor Johnson, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Richardson and Councillor Knight, which is 5. The dissent motion is lost. If you could please continue your debate. Councillor McCulloch, you have 1 minute and 10 seconds left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And if anyone was offended by that, I'm sorry, but I refer to many of my Aboriginal friends as family and part of my family, and when I respond and say our traditional owners, that is said in a very connective, relational way. And Mr Vaughan, Josh Maguire, would agree with that, as he refers to me as sister. So, councillors, I urge you to look at that, look at the balance of information. We're going to get a bridge. We're going to ensure that consistent consultation is ongoing, and our environmental impact has also been addressed, and it will be a rigorous process to ensure that happens.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion. Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment, and that amendment would be to delete recommendation 3.
Can we do that at this stage, Mr CEO? Sorry? Councillor Bowman.
What was the...
It was to delete recommendation 3, which is part of the substantive motion. I think that'd be complicated. Okay. I'm being advised that it's a lawful amendment if you get a seconder, Councillor Bowman, to delete part 3 of the substantive motion as it stands. Seconded, Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Councillor Kiley, do you wish to debate it? Yes. Thank you. You can open your debate. Thanks, Councillor Bowman.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to be really quick. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Catalano brought up some interesting points regard to recommendation 3. I understand what the intent of the motion is, but I don't believe it sits well with recommendation 1 and 2, and as such, I've moved that amendment to remove it.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano as the seconder.
I just want to say there's no point making this motion worse than it is by putting something on it that completely contradicts the motion. I mean, it's laughable, and actually it's a poor reflection. It's a poor reflection on the council.
Resume your seat, please, Councillor Catalano. What's your point of order, please, Councillor McCulloch? She's debating against it, and if you can just be respectful to other councillors.
Well, the thing is, you see,
just be respectful.
Yeah, I'll just explain why I said that, because anybody that would actually look at that motion would have a little laugh to themselves, thinking perhaps they really didn't know what they were doing. And I mean, I'm only going to support this because I wouldn't want us to look that bad.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. I'll just remind all councillors that there's nobody against the amendment when I put it. It was accepted by the mover and the seconder, and no one raised a point of objection at that time.
Make a point about that, actually, because I asked a question and then you just said, oh, well, because the first and the mover and the seconder had approved it, that in fact it was already a part of the substantive motion.
Okay.
In fact, I didn't get a chance to even oppose it.
Thank you.
So,
well, you're opposing it
you.
now. So we've had 2 speakers for the amendment being removed. Is there any speaker for it retaining? Councillor Kiley.
Thank you, Mayor. I haven't got it in front of me, the 8 points here, but...
There you go. Yeah, it's right here.
But
there you go.
Thank you, if you don't mind.
Here's your 8 points.
I will refer to them, particularly point 8. Recommendation 8. The committee recommends that the Australian Government increase the transparency and accountability requirements on prescribed body corporates and native title representative bodies under the Native Title Act 1999 to require that they demonstrate adequate consultation with and consideration of local community views prior to agreeing to the destruction, alteration of any cultural heritage sites. Councillors, these recommendations were put forward to the federal government, and they make recommendations which in time will, I believe, become law, federal law. They make serious recommendations to improve how we do things in the community, and it astounds me that I've got a group of councillors here who sit in judgment of these recommendations of this report and think that they somehow know better than the 8 recommendations put forward in the Federal Parliament. These recommendations are to improve the consultation and transparency and improve the engagement with the Indigenous community. They are not there to somehow hinder the process. I am simply trying to include something which will highlight the importance of this issue to the state government, to the federal government, when it comes to funding and when it comes to being developed. I'm attaching something which is significant to the Indigenous communities all across Australia. That these principles, these 8 principles and recommendations should be respected, should be adhered to. They may not be law at the moment, but all we are asking to do is recommend to the Minister that with respect to, with due regard to, and in accordance with the intent and objectives. It doesn't bind her to do anything, but it certainly raises everything that has been raised by the community in respect of this being a culturally significant heritage site. It's simply doing that. Now, some councillors aren't aware of the way the numbers fall on council, and some councillors don't even engage with other ward councillors and discuss their motions prior to putting them forward. The numbers are not in favour of some of the motions we've seen previously tonight. All I'm trying to do is realise that there's a reality when it comes to voting in council. And the reality is that it is highly unlikely that this motion would fail. My amendment is simply to make an improvement to that motion to ensure that the concerns of the Indigenous community locally and nationally are taken with this motion. It's not the best, it's not the most ideal outcome. I particularly don't agree with the concept plan, but I know that the numbers on this floor are highly likely to approve this motion. An amendment from me is to make an improvement. I don't necessarily have to agree with the total motion, but I'm just trying to improve something that's going to go off to the Minister as I see it. It will go off to the Minister as I see it. I'm just trying to improve it. Now, if some councillors want to sit in judgment of the 8 recommendations in the Juukan Gorge inquiry, then I suggest you take that up with the Indigenous community and ask them personally whether you really want to ignore the recommendations in this document. I seriously think that you wouldn't find an Indigenous community in the whole of Australia that wouldn't want these considerations taken into account. So please, leave them in there, move forward, and leave it up to the Minister to do the best job she can do, along with main roads and in accordance with the 8 recommendations of this plan, because the Juukan Gorge issue has been raised over and over again throughout this whole debate. If there are similarities, then we take the recommendations with that along with this whole project. I don't think anybody is going to be happy with the outcome we're going to decide on tonight. But I implore you
40 seconds left, sorry.
To stay with those 8 recommendations and leave it up to the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion to disallow Part 3. Councillor Howlett.
Disallow Part 3. Yes. Okay. I understand the intent of Councillor Kiley. I really do, and I believe he's coming from almost desperate measures to try and add some context and texture and Indigenous respect to the motion. And if we could only apply those 8 recommendations provided in a way forward to inform a new concept design, it would be ideal. But unfortunately, the current concept design has had its consultation to this point, and I think is contrary to what those recommendations are. So they sit at a juxtaposition. So yeah, I can't support it.
Thank you. Speaker for the motion, for the amendment. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, crikey, Councillor. Look, what we're trying to do here is to make a motion that is currently in its current form completely inconsistent, to make it consistent. Councillor Kiley saying, in desperation, I added this on to try to make it look better. Well, look, Councillor.
Excuse me, point of order, Mayor.
What's your point of order, please, Councillor Kiley?
I never said anything about me being in desperation to add this on. That was a point made by another councillor, so thank you.
Thank you. If you can just stick to the facts,
Yeah,
Councillor.
no, I'm just making the point
Johnson.
here. Councillor Kiley has added this in because he voted the wrong way earlier in the meeting. What he's now trying to do is to hide
Point of
behind
order, Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councillor.
I think you know the point of order.
Yes, and I'd ask you to retract that statement. Thank
I'll
you,
retract
Councillor.
anything, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
He's now trying...
Mayor, can I actually ask him to retract the statement rather than retract
have done.
anything?
I have done.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
he
you.
did say he retracted it.
And now he's trying to hide behind a Duke and Gorge mea culpa fig leaf. Well, sorry, Councillor, it's too late. Now, the other interesting point made here was the 8 points are not listed up there. If you thought these things were right, they'd be listed up there in the motion. And Councillor Kiley had to ask for a copy of the document. He didn't know what the 8
Point of order, Mayor.
points were.
Well, I think he knew what they were because they were part of his alternative motion, Councillor Johnson. He just didn't have a copy in front of him at the time.
I sent it out to all staff, all councillors, and it was part of my original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can continue your debate and stick
Thank
to
you.
the facts, thank you,
I
Councillor
will do.
Johnson.
And the other thing we heard tonight was Councillor Kiley saying, it's already been decided. I've already spoken to people. I already know what the outcome is. So it's out in the open then. There's caucusing. So you've already decided which way you're going to vote before you get into the chamber. You're not listening to the debate at all, is what we're hearing. We had a very good motion up there, and you voted the wrong way, and now you're trying to hide
Councillor
behind...
Johnson, I'd ask you to withdraw...
Oh, I'm very sorry, Mr Mayor, if I'm upsetting people.
He didn't vote for you, which is his prerogative.
It's his prerogative, yeah. He can
And
do
it
that.
doesn't
Doesn't
mean
he?
it's the wrong way, and I'd ask you to withdraw that comment.
I'll withdraw it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
But, you know, the way you vote is going to live with you forever on this because it's a serious, extraordinary change in our environment that you voted for. So it makes no sense. And that's why we're removing it, because it's inconsistent. If Councillor Kiley had written in there, in Part 3, something like mechanism for traditional owners to seek review or appeal, or decision-making processes that ensure traditional owners and native title holders have primary decision-making power in relation to their cultural heritage, it would have been blindingly obvious that it was completely and totally inconsistent. It made no sense at all. So, councillors, that's why you should vote to remove Part 3. It makes no sense. It's just a cover-up, so take it out.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against the amendment? If there's no other speakers, Megan, can I ask you to just scroll down to the substantive motion, please? So I'm going to speak. I'll hand the chair over to you, Deputy Chairman. And the reason I'm supporting the amendment stay in, councillors, is I think it has synergy with points C and D. This is a recommendation to the Minister that she consider and give respect and due regard where applicable to the 8 recommendations. So in item C of the substantive motion is ensure that the Helena River Alliance and the traditional owners remain involved in the ongoing discussions as the bridge progresses to its final design. I think there's a correlation between point 3 and that part of the motion. Also, to ensure that input is sought from the Wadjuk Native Title Group to shape and form the content of the project cultural heritage management plan. And also E, investigate where Aboriginal artwork and heritage interpretation can be incorporated into the project. So I see as it adding value to the points made in the substantive motion. It's a recommendation. It asks the Minister to consider, to respect and have due regard where applicable to those 8 recommendations, and therefore I support the amendment as it stands. Thank you. Councillor Bowman, you're right to reply, please.
Mr Mayor, we didn't get a chance to vote on this because you did get the mover and seconder to take part of that as a test of standard. I was against it, and hence I moved this amendment. Mr Mayor, councillors, I understand the intent of what Councillor Kiley is doing, and I don't disagree with that. But I struggle to see the synergies with this point, with point 1. And that's the reason why I'm asking for it to be taken out.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the amendment to remove item 3 from the substantive motion. Those councillors in favour. I have Councillor Bowman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Knight, which gives me 7. Councillor Prodovnik, are you voting for or against?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm voting for the amendment that we agreed on
So
tonight when people voted the first time.
So against the amendment to delete point 3. Thank you. That's 7 councillors for. The amendment is lost. Item 3 remains part of the substantive motion. Did you get those names? Thank you, Megan. All the other councillors were against.
Did Councillor Catalano cast a vote?
Yes. Yes, she was the mover. 7. Thank you. We're now going back to the substantive motion, and do I have a speaker for the motion? Thank you, councillors. She voted for.
Yeah, so Councillor Richardson as well. You didn't vote? You didn't vote for the removal?
It's Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch. Thank you. A speaker for or against the substantive motion? Are there no other speakers for or against? Then I'll hand the chair back to you. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I'll try and be brief. A lot's been said tonight, councillors, and I just want to correct a couple of issues. Councillor Johnson, in his debate against this, said that the traditional owners weren't involved before the bridge concept was designed. They were. They've been involved from the very beginning. And the whole floodplain, the Harina River floodplain, is also affected by the Roe Highway, which pretty well substantially fills in the floodplain. That is it's upstream. Then we have the Military Road Bridge, which also substantially fills the Harina River floodplain, also upstream. So I don't know why there's such concern, and those would have been main roads projects or City of Swan projects when they were constructed, and the river still flows. The recommendation also includes, not this motion, but there is an intent to rehabilitate 10 acres of the floodplain with up to 30,000 plants, which in my view will be a better long-term environmental outcome than what we have now. I was disappointed to hear Councillor Catalano say that the RAP gave no thing, and she didn't support it. Well, you didn't vote against it, Councillor Catalano. From my memory, it was passed unanimously.
Point of order, actually.
What's your point?
Point of order is that actually I originally opposed that motion. I did actually originally oppose it, and I originally opposed it because it didn't have any truth-telling in it. That's actually the facts.
Well,
I can't, sorry, Mr Mayor, I can't recall whether Councillor Catalano did or didn't. No, I can. But I can't as
the point I make, Mr Mayor, it was passed unanimously tonight, and then she made comment about how it wasn't acceptable to this council, and she was embarrassed by it, and I don't take that. Earlier on, it was mentioned about we've got a windscreen, we should be looking forward and not a rear vision mirror. This plan has been around since the late 1990s, and I refer to our former CEO, Mr Eric Lumsden. It was back in his time. What was his main profession? He was a planner. He was planning for our future. And in fact, he went on to perhaps be the most senior planner in this state at the WAPC, and then the Director General of Planning. So that's what planners do. They think for the future. If Mr Lumsden had anything to do with designing a bridge across the Helena River going back some 20 years, just like Professor Reid suggested we reserve land for the Reid Highway, the Tonkin Highway, the Roe Highway. They're visionaries in planning, and it's unfortunate that it's taken us this long to secure the federal and state funding to have this project go ahead. And I support the motion before us tonight to endorse the concept plan. And I said earlier in another debate, there's only two options tonight, councillors: endorse the current design or have no bridge at all, and Midland will choke to death on congestion. Thank you. Councillor Brodovnik, you've now got 3 minutes for your right of reply.
Honestly, I think we should just put it to the vote. I think it's been covered quite extensively. Can we do that?
If that's all you wish to say, I'll put it to the vote. Yeah. So I just want to make sure, councillors, we are voting on the motion of Councillor Brodovnik, which is coming up on the screen now, which includes point 3. Those councillors in favour. I have Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson and Councillor McCulloch, which is 8. The motion is passed. And I'll just have those councillors put their... Oh, and Councillor Brodovnik, it is 9. If I can just have those councillors raise their hands again so I can just confirm the vote. Councillor Jones, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor McCulloch and Councillor Brodovnik. The motion is passed. Thank you. All the other councillors were against, which now takes us on to the next item in the agenda. Thank you, councillors.
Mayor, could I move that we suspend the meeting tonight at this hour and reconvene at another time, given the...
Well, you can move that way, Councillor Kiley. I'll see if you get a second and then I'll put it to the meeting. You're seconding it, Councillor Parry. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it, or you just want to put it straight to the vote, councillors?
Oh, I don't mind put it to the vote.
You want to debate it? Councillor Kiley, there is opposition and they want to debate it, so if you can just...
Nothing to say, Mayor.
Nothing to
include the date in the motion if it gets passed. You're deferring until next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, the 9th at 6 p.m. Councillor Parry is the seconder. Neither the mover or the seconder want to debate. Councillor Bowman, it's up to you.
Mayor, just quickly, there's some people in the gallery that have sat here for quite some time to listen to particular items. It'd be nice for them to be able to, if we could deal with those items. Once we've dealt with those items, then I'm happy to then close it off tonight.
Well, do you know what items they're here for, Councillor Bowman? And then are you going to ask for a change in the order of proceedings? I was just going to start at on page 17 at the policy review procurement.
Mr. Mayor, so I'll ask for a change of proceedings to deal with 4.4, 4.4, 4.1, 4.1 and 4.2, 4.1, 4.2 and 4.4.
We've got 25 minutes left, council, before 10 o'clock. If we can deal with all those items, I'm happy to move that way or go that way if that's the decision of council.
Sorry, you've got your adjournment motion in front of you, so you needed to vote on that.
Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Brodovnik, I've got a motion to adjourn the meeting. I've had the seconder and the mover decline to speak. I've had a speaker against. Is there any other speakers? Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I'm speaking in favour of continuing this meeting. I think that Councillor Bowman is right. We've got business to get through. We've got people in the public gallery, and as well as getting the business through, we need to recognise that we are paid, and we're paid to work. And if the decision of council is generally to continue till 10, then we should continue till 10. And if we can get through these 3 items, we should continue beyond 10. In my view, there's no reason to finish this meeting early.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? Do you want to have a right reply, Councillor Cole? I'm now going to put it that we cease the meeting now and reconvene next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Those in favour? Councillor Kiley. The motion is lost. Everyone else was against. I need a resolution now to deal with items 4.1, 4.2 and 4.4. Moved Councillor Bowman, seconded Councillor Johnson. Is there anyone against that? There is not. I declare that carried. If we can move to item 4.1, councillors, it's on page 102 of your agenda.
Page 23 of the one sheet. 23 in the running sheet.
Yeah, but it's on page 102 of your agenda. And I believe Councillor Howlett has deferred to Councillor Johnson. If you can read your motion, thank you.
There out one out, Mr Mayor. My motion is that Council resolve to not support proposed amendment number 201 to local planning scheme number 17, further additional use of garden centre, to additional use number 55, lot 194, number 24, Stirling Street, Guildford. 2. Record the reasons for changing the office of recommendation are 1. Amending local planning scheme number 17 is part of Council's legislative function, not its quasi-judicial function. As a result, Council has discretion about what amendments to support. 2. Residents who live on Sutherland Close and Stirling Crescent object to the impact on their residential amenity through the intensification of use that would result from amending the permitted uses to include a garden centre in addition to the existing cafe. 3. Submissions supporting the garden centre are not from residents in close proximity or impacted by the intensification of use. 4. This amendment is for a spot rezoning to support an additional unapproved garden centre in operation since 2013. 5. There is no reason why the cafe cannot continue as a garden cafe, however, without selling the plants.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? As there's no... I'll just warn everyone now. I'll accept your very late seconder, Councillor Catalano, but I will not in future. I glanced around the room twice. I gave everyone an opportunity. From now on, if you're late putting your hand up, the motion will lapse. Thank you. Is there anyone against? There is. Do you wish to debate it? No. Don't wish to debate it? Then I'll put the motion. And you're doing that just for sake of debate, Councillor Howard, or are you going to speak against the motion?
I may speak against the motion.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
I think some councillors take advantage of our meeting procedures, and I won't tolerate it in future.
Yeah, so, Mr Mayor...
You've got 5 minutes, Councillor Johnson.
Councillors are entitled to decide how they vote on a matter. And our meeting procedures are a bit complicated in this matter, and this is a very
Councillor
important
Johnson,
matter.
I've started the timer. You have 5 minutes for your debate.
It's an important matter. As a council, our role is to look strategically at what is best for our community. We have to ask, what does our community want in this location? How can we balance the needs of a retail business that is directly adjacent to the residential area of Sutherland Close? I'm familiar with the Post-Day Cafe. I think I've visited the cafe on 4 occasions, most recently at the invitation of Mr Noonan, with Mr Phil Russell in attendance. Mr Noonan showed us around, so I'm familiar with the entire site, every single part of the garden centre, every single public area of the building. This saga has been going on since 2013, before I was a councillor, and initially after being elected in 2015, I did not quite believe that this business did not have a development consent. I remember Miss Dundas explaining to me that she thought it didn't have one, and I was saying, oh no, it couldn't possibly be the case. However, eventually I realised possibly it didn't, and this is when I started to put my questions on notice in section 10 of the agenda to establish a clear baseline. I think in 2017 I learned there was no development consent for the cafe and garden centre, which came as an enormous surprise to me. Since 2015, when I was elected, I've received a steady stream of complaints about the business and its impact on the adjacent residential community. Remember, councillors, this used to be a low-impact post office. The yard that is now the cafe garden centre was the residential yard of the live-in post office manager. The residents of Sutherland Close, who are immediately adjacent to the yard, had the post office residential backyard as a buffer between them and the post office business. Now, this commercial business is right up against the fences of the homes in Sutherland Close. This is not fair for those who bought a residential home next to a residential yard that is now a cafe garden centre. You heard from the residents tonight how upset they are about this, and you heard so we've heard 3 deputations all from people who either live in close proximity or who own property in close proximity. Councillors, there is no denying the Post-Day Cafe Garden Centre has an attractive ambience, as they would say in France. Sitting in a cafe surrounded by plants is a very pleasant way to spend your time. You can see from the submissions that many people like the cafe, but unfortunately none of these supporters live next door. So what to do? The cafe is approved. It received retrospective approval, I think, in May 2019, 18 months or so after opening. The garden centre is different. It requires a scheme amendment, and I voted to initiate it, councillors, because I thought that's the right thing to do. Mr Noonan's paid his fee to get it initiated, and the reason I voted to initiate was to get the submissions from the community. I resisted trying to knock it out at the initiation stage. The submissions we have received now include 9 objections about parking in this area, which has a limited amount of street parking. Most of those objections are for people in Sullivan Close, South and Stirling Street. The other issue is noise. There's noise every morning before the cafe opens from a leaf blower. And you heard, I think it was Larry Perouan talking about the noise impact on him in his backyard where he works. He works from home like me, so his home environment outside is actually quite important to him. Like him, amazingly, as an office worker, I work outside these days. It's very, very strange, but that's the way it is. There is also, I think, did I mention noise from the leaf blower? Every morning at about 7 a.m. there is a leaf blower, and that is really extremely intrusive. And then there is odour from the potting mix. Now, councillors, as this has been in the past subject of some comment, we've got 3 submissions. 3 different people maintain they are smelling an odour from the potting mix.
You have 1 minute left, thank you.
Let me go on a bit more, Mr Mayor. Why advance to the next stage if we know this garden centre is not acceptable to the neighbours? Remember, this is a retrospective scheme amendment. It's not hypothetical. These things are actually happening. We've got 3 businesses here. I've spoken about those. These businesses require delivery trucks, and there is no location for delivery trucks to be accommodated, even at the DA stage. Each business requires parking, yet only 4 bays have been approved. People are parking and impacting the residential amenity of Southern Close. Councillors, some of you may have the idea this is a nice cafe where people order cream teas and then decide to buy a petunia. But only this morning I saw several potted trees about 4 metres high being delivered. It's not an impulse purchase to buy a 4 metre high tree, councillors. This is almost an industrial or commercial activity. You're not going to take that in your home, back home in your car after buying a coffee. So, councillors, I think the right balance is to reject the scheme amendment in the interest of maintaining a buffer between the residential zone and the commercial zone. Mr Noonan has approval for a cafe. That's fine. Everyone loves it. And he can still have plants in the cafe. He can still have that beautiful environment.
Councillor Johnson, that's your 5 minutes.
I've got 2 more sentences, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
The ambience of the cafe would not change, but the impact on the neighbours would be considerably reduced. You'd have the same cafe, same nice coffee, same strange Frenchman serving it up, same beautiful plants, but no impact on the neighbours. So, councillors, please think of our residents and our community and reject the scheme amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Catalano as the seconder.
Thank you. The difference here is, in terms of the retrospective aspect of, the permission granted after somebody has set up a business without the proper approvals for a number of years, which, is something that is not something that we want to see happen all the time. So the fact that there can be a retrospective decision, or there can be a decision that approves that, later on down the track, is one thing where the use is permitted. But actually, this is an ex-use, if I understand this correctly. And then I have to think to myself, well, why is it an ex-use? Maybe it's actually because it was never appropriate to have a garden centre at this location at all. That's why it's an ex-use. So does the retrospective aspect of it really apply? And then getting back to the reasons why it was originally an ex-use, or a not possible or a not permitted use at all, is because it's in smack bang in the middle of a residential area. it's a small size area. It's actually effectively the backyard of a Victorian building. And we all know they had small blocks in those days, or small little plots. It's very close to neighbours. The other thing that we've also got to consider is the impact of all these particular businesses on the fabric of that building. And we've heard tonight about the heritage, well, it's more than aspects. I mean, it's actually on the State Register, I believe. So, in fact, it's a significant heritage building. And, you know, obviously, it's not designed for so many businesses to be in the one building, particularly with all this water and this garden centre that was never, ever, ever envisaged for that site. And there was, like I say, there's probably very good reasons why that was. So, you know, great. They've got the cafe. The cafe, like, it can still have pot plants around, and, you know, that makes sense. But a garden centre, it's just going too far. And I think for that reason, I won't be able to support it.
Thank you. Speaker against the motion, Councillor Howlett.
I won't be speaking, thank you.
Any speakers against the motion? Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, we have this proposed amendment in front of us. Yes, there's been a history, probably on both sides, applicant and city, where there's been some forms of miscommunication, but I believe both parties have acted in good faith to look at what we have here before us this evening. Yes, there were concerns raised in submissions with respect to the lack of on-site parking and different things. These are not really considered to be prejudicial to the advancement of this proposed amendment, councillors, as these are operational matters that can be addressed at a subsequent application. Councillors, I'm sorry, Mr Mayor, the sighing, the constant mumbling, it's really disconcerting. Pardon, Ms. Cap, it's telling me something. I'm sorry. No, I'm just going to sit down for a minute.
Thank you. I'll ask members in the gallery just to be respectful. Councillors are trying to debate. Councillors are trying to listen to the debate. Well,
I'm sorry, it wasn't the young.
That's okay. Sighing. Please resume when you're ready, Councillor McCulloch. And if people in the audience continue to interject, unintentionally or otherwise, I'll ask them to leave. Thank you.
Councillors, this site was previously a busy post office. Yes, people would come and go on a daily basis, consistently with probably what we have before us now. Councillors, this building was a derelict heritage building prior to the purchase from Mr Noonan.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
What's your point of order, Councillor Johnson?
I thought the process is to sit down. Thank you. Mr Mayor, this building was not derelict. It was operating as a post office. It had operated for 120 years. The condition of the building has not changed at all, so it's a factually incorrect statement and it needs to be retracted.
I think the post office was vacant before the purchase because the City of Swan was invited to buy it. But either way, I think you'll agree that Mr Noonan has spent considerable sum doing the post office up. So,
Mr Mayor, you're not
point of order,
getting it.
You have no point of order.
The point of order here is that Councillor is saying that it's derelict and it was not derelict. Well, it implies it was empty and no longer usable. So it's an incorrect statement. It's quite important she retracts that.
Thank you.
It's false.
Perhaps she could use the word in disrepair. Thank you, Councillor McCulloch. If you can continue with your debate, please.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, that was my opinion, and as councillors we can voice our opinions and we are very consistent in doing that in this chamber, and that is part of our debate. Maybe I'll say it was in very poor condition. but since then a considerable amount of money has been spent on bringing this building to a higher standard and is continuing to be spent to make this building the significant icon that it is in Guildford and across our metropolitan area.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
What's your point of order, please?
The amount
Councillor
of
Johnson?
money that Mr Noonan-Housel hasn't spent is not known, it's not in the report. And secondly, it's got nothing to do with changing the use to include a garden centre in the backyard.
Thank you,
It's
Councillor
irrelevant.
Johnson. I'll rule that you have no point of order because you, from time to time, in fact, continually bring other issues into your debate. So please continue, Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So here we have an iconic building, some thriving businesses, and also through our debate, councillors have mentioned it's in a residential area. Well, councillors, businesses are generally predominantly close to residents in Guildford, right through the town. It's characteristic of this beautiful place, and owner-operator businesses with houses behind, etc. Even in that strip, we have a thriving Swan Valley Visitor Centre. We have a beautiful pottery place. So to say it is smack bang in a residential area, we have many thriving, unique and characteristic businesses there. We've had concerns about the noises and the leaf blowers. I know many people, my neighbour uses a leaf blower at random times on a daily basis too, so we can't just hold that possibly to a business. Delivery trucks and loading bays and things, those aspects have been of concern. Well, councillors, I've had a look and I've had a walk through Guildford, and yes, the applicant has requested a loading bay and there is communication with the city in regards to that. But across Guildford, there is a significant lack of loading bays, and it's something that I will be attending to, and I will talk to the ward councillors as well. Part of the magic, councillors, is the combined cafe and garden centre. Yes, as Councillor Johnson has stated, it is lovely to sit and have a coffee amongst the plants. But the unique aspect of purchasing possibly a plant or a gift as well is part of a model that is, I suppose, reflective of even some of the English culture and across Europe with garden centres, which have great popularity. They attract, they're in a destination place. They are a tourism attractor. I've known the comments, and there have been very many positive comments and submissions to say that this is a significant destination in Guildford, and people travel far and wide to visit it, and say, even from the Swan Valley Visitor Centre, they'll go to the Visitor Centre, come down, spend some time at Post Cafe and head into the Swan Valley. So, in essence, people have referred it as a bit of a gateway to their day in the Swan Valley, and I believe that is positive on so many levels as well. So, like I said, part of the magic is that combined cafe garden centre, that European model, and it actually encourages a large and attracts a great cross-section of our wider community and population. Councillors, this scheme amendment in front of us this evening
1 minute left, thank you.
is not to approve the business itself. It is simply that proposed amendment to the local planning scheme number 17. I would ask you to think about Guildford, what we value with its heritage, its business, what makes it unique and what makes it significant and a jewel for the city of Swan, and to weigh that up with what you have before you this evening, councillors, something that is really important to many locals. It's iconic and it's something important to consider.
Thank you, Speaker, for the motion. Any other speakers for or against? And Councillor Johnson, you have 3 minutes for your right to reply. Thank you.
Well, Mr Mayor, I must draw your attention to, I've already pointed it out, Councillor, I forgot your name now, McCulloch. Councillor McCulloch said that the building was derelict. It absolutely was not. It was always a post office until Mr. Noonan ended the lease on the post office, so it was not a derelict building at all. It was in good use.
I think she amended her debate to in poor condition.
That's true, but a derelict building is an obvious thing, and I think what we're saying is that if Councillor McCullough is suggesting it's derelict, it's a fundamentally incorrect fact. It's so fundamentally incorrect. It draws significant doubt into everything else he says. I suspect she doesn't know the place at all.
Councillor Johnson, sorry, I'll deal with your point of order. I agree that Councillor Johnson made a statement that he should not have, and I think that an apology is owed to Councillor McCulloch, saying that everything she said then falls away. Councillor Johnson,
Mr. Mayor, I'll apologise for
Councillor
that.
Johnson, she
I'm
corrected her earlier
apologising.
statement. Thank you.
I'm apologising, but I do think we need to disregard a lot of what was said.
Well, that's your opinion.
That's my
Other
opinion.
councillors will make their
But
own mind up.
I think to say that a building is derelict indicates a fundamental
She
lack of
withdrew
knowledge.
that.
All right.
If you can
But
please
she did say it.
continue, you're wasting your own time.
Yeah. So look, it's not a heritage business. It's only been there since 2013. The business is not approved, so it doesn't have any approval. Who would want to have to listen to a leaf blower at 7 a.m. every morning? And how would you operate a garden centre without a leaf blower? I've got no idea. And it's things like this that we have uses that are allowed in some places and not in others, councillors. That's why we do that. We can't say that a garden centre is suitable right next to somebody's home when we know perfectly well they'll have to operate a leaf blower and use potting mix. As for spending money on this supposedly derelict building, if you didn't realise that it was not derelict, then how do you know how much money he spent? Councillors, for those of us who live in Guildford, we know that he's wound up the clock, so the clock now works, but I've not seen anything else happen to the actual fabric of the building at all. It looks exactly the same. The actual house, the building looks exactly the same as it did before. The only thing that's changed is on the outside, we've now got a garden centre and cafe, and the upstairs, the residential component, is now used for the hawk plant business. So
you have 30 seconds left.
It was a busy post office, but there was no activity at all in the backyard because the backyard was the residential backyard of the post office manager who lived there. But now there are 3 businesses there. Where there was no business, now suddenly there are 3. This was never envisaged at all. So, councillors, our residents have rights, and we have to recognise that this is a retrospective change. The business is already operating. We need to protect Guildford, and I think the people who live in Guildford best know how to protect it. You've heard from the community. They're absolutely adamant they don't want this. This use could never be approved. The business could never be approved. I would urge councillors to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm now going to put the motion. Those in favour of Councillor Bowman, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Knight and Councillor Richardson, which is 6, the motion is lost. Oh, sorry, Councillor Brodovnik. You're for the motion? Sorry, I can't hear you. Are you on mute?
Yeah, I am, but I'd like to foreshadow almost going back to it because...
Sorry, I've got another motion from Councillor Howlett first. So you're supporting the motion. That means the count 7. The motion is still lost. Thank you. Councillor Howlett, you had a motion on the books. Yes, it is 10 o'clock, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting, councillors. I'm sorry, but unless I get a direction from council, we can suspend the meeting until 6 p.m. next Wednesday. Or if councillors wish to continue to finalise this motion, we've got a notice of a motion from Councillor Howlett, and Councillor Brodovnik may want to do something different. I'll put it to the council if I get a mover and a seconder.
Mr Mayor, point of order. I thought I moved that we deal with 4.1, 4.2 and 4.4 and then we break.
Yeah.
My understanding is if we dealt with... I think if we're ambitious to get through those 3 items by 10 p.m. and not to continue past 10 p.m. if we hadn't finished Councillor Bowman. That was my understanding of the recommendation. So I'm going to put put it to the council. If I get a mover and a seconder to adjourn now, we'll adjourn. If not, we'll finish item 4.1 before we break. Move that we adjourn now. Councillor Kiley, seconded Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Do you wish to debate it? Councillor Kiley, Councillor Catalano, no. If you want to debate it, Councillor Bowman, off you go.
Councillors, we moved item 5.1 forward so we could deal with that. People in the gallery expected to hear their items tonight. They've been sitting here all night. It's not their fault that we brought that item forward. And as best we can do is spend a little bit more time here so we can get through 2.5 items so they don't have to come back another night.
Councillor Johnson, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, but I think the public gallery needs to be aware that council, as they're well aware, we are voted into this office and we're also paid. So councils are paid $35,000 a year for this. I think it is reasonable to continue until late into the night if necessary, and we should certainly finish 4.1 and possibly continue with some of the other items. I really do think there's an expectation of productivity and delivering value here, as well as just being elected and putting your hand up. So I can't support adjourning now.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. But I'll just remind Council, I think there was a motion that previously that we adjourn as close to 10 o'clock for occupational health and safety reasons. If there's no more speakers, I'm going to put the motion that we adjourn. Councillor Predovnik, you wish to enter the debate?
Yeah, I do. I actually voted thinking that we were going to finish at 10. We get very, very tired and it's a lot of concentration, and I understand that people are waiting here, but unfortunately we can't predict how long an item is going to go. That's just the nature of the beast. So to continue on until potentially 10:30 even, or 11, when we're all very tired, I suspect, it's just not, it's not good decision making, and I don't think it's a problem to adjourn when we're a lot fresher next week. I think that's just a practical thing to do.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I apologise to those in the gallery, and I'm sure we would love to get through those items, but when we discussed this, Council, earlier, 10 o'clock is a finishing time. We've had staff here from, 8 o'clock in the morning, and we have those residents going back to, Bullsbrook, driving back at night, me starting a shift in the morning. We've got people who work as well, and as much as I'd love to keep pushing through, like we said, sometimes it pushes past 10:30. By the time you get home and unwind, relax, get ready for work in the morning, it's pushing it too far.
Thank you. Any other speakers before I put it to the vote? Councillor Kiley, the right of reply.
Yeah, just on the point you made, Mayor, I just want to correct you if I may. The decision of council was that we continue on until the item is finished. However, that doesn't stop a motion from the floor to suspend the meeting at any point. So usually we would if we haven't finished the item, we would continue on, but it wouldn't stop a motion such as we've put tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and forgive me for being incorrect on that. But we're here on Monday night. I'm just going to enter the debate. I'll hand the chair over to you, Councillor.
I have a comment.
You'll have to speak first then. Thank you.
Thank you. Look, I'm against the motion to continue, and I think there is an element there. Yes, we made a decision to finish an item. We're not done. We've done finishing one recommendation. We're about to start another one. That last recommendation or motion took nearly 25 minutes. So given that it could take another 25 minutes for the next one, then another 25 minutes for the other one, yes, we could be sitting here until well past 11 o'clock. I don't think it's healthy for anyone, and my apologies to those people in the gallery, but I think you prefer that we would have a fresh mind in debate rather than a tired mind making wrong decisions.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Question. Before we put it to the vote, can you make it clear what the motion is, Mr Mayor? Because it sounded like Councillor Congleton thought we were moving the reverse of what's actually up there.
No, the motion is that we adjourn the meeting tonight. We come back at 6 p.m. on Wednesday the 9th of March and resume where we finished the debate now. So are there any other speakers? Councillor Knight.
Will these items go to the top of the list on Wednesday?
We will finish where we start tonight on item 4.1, and then my understanding is we'll then go back to the place in the agenda, or if...
Mr Mayor, I think we've got a motion before that you agreed that you would
okay,
do
well,
4.1, 4.2 and then 4.4,
I
think it is.
Okay,
and
then
then
we'll,
you will resume back into your
then we'll
normal
go back. Okay, so the point of clarification, we'll resume on 4.1, then deal with 4.2, 4.4, and then go back to the previous items. Just before I ask Councillor Colley to finish his debate, I think it's important. Councillor Johnson said that we're paid this a great amount of money to be here, and it's our job to be here. I'd remind, mainly for people in the public gallery, we were here on Monday night, we're here tonight, we're here again tomorrow night, and I think part of the process, from my point of view of trying to chair a meeting, if people did not interrupt as much, if the gallery did not interrupt as much, we would be a lot more efficient. And when councillors raise their hand to say they're against something just for the sake of debate and then don't debate against it, we waste a lot of time, councillors. Councillor Kylie, you'll write a reply if you wish to exercise it. I'm now going to put the vote so we adjourn now and resume next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Those in favour? I have Councillor Kylie, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Congdon, myself, Councillor Parry, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Richardson, which is 8. The motion is, and Councillor Prodovnik, that is 9. The motion is carried. I formally adjourn this meeting. I'm just trying to get the right time. At 10:06, and we will resume the ordinary council of meeting 6 p.m. next Wednesday, the 9th of March. I thank everyone